Ladies and gentlemen, council members, Wakefield standing for the mayoral party.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Members are not required to wear face coverings during the meeting, but the advice is that you should still consider doing so when you are able to unless speaking. Can I also remind members to switch off their mobile phones during the meeting? Please remain standing while Chaplain Reverend Nichols leads the council in prayer.
Those who do not wish to participate will use this time to quietly reflect or leave the chamber and join us on Agenda 2 item. Heavenly Father, we thank you that you are merciful and compassionate. You are slow to anger and filled with unfailing love. You are good to everyone and you shower compassion on all of your creation. We thank you, Lord, for everything that's been done over these last few months in this city, Lord, Father, to bring about the better for the people that live here. Father, we thank you for Madam Mayor and the time that she put in. I pray that you'll continue to refresh her, you'll continue to refresh all the members that are here and their families, Lord. And Father, I pray for every decision that's made this afternoon, that Father, that it will be guided by your wisdom. And we pray again, may the name of the city shall be called, the Lord is there. Amen.
Please be seated. Agenda item 2 is on the council's summons is to receive disclosures by members of interests and matters under consideration. Will members declaring an interest please identify themselves and their particular interest clearly and complete the usual yellow form before the end of the meeting. Are there any disclosable peculiar interests to be declared? Are there any other significant interests to be declared? Are there any interests at all to be declared? No, thank you. Agenda item 3 is to receive and confirm the minutes of the council meeting held on the 1st of December 2021. Are these minutes moved?
Move the minutes, Madam Mayor.
Are the minutes seconded?
Second the minutes, Madam.
All in favour? That is carried. Agenda item 4 is to receive apologies for absence. Apologies for absence have been received in advance of the meeting from Councillors Collins, Patton Allen Garbutt, Manifield, Massey, Rowley, Taylor and Councillor Hunt. I have also had notice that some members are going to have to leave the chambers at about 4:45. So thank you.
Councillor Williams, please, for apologies.
Councillor Williams as well.
Councillor Taylor.
Councillor Taylor. Any others?
Councillor Whitehouse.
Councillor.
Councillor Fisherwick's just been called away.
Okay.
Back. Can I just say that after leaving 5 o'clock it's still going on?
Okay. Any other apologies? No. Agenda item 5 is to deal with such announcements as I may decide to lay before council. I was saddened to hear of the passing of 2 former councillors, Trevor Rising and Bob Kirk. Our thoughts and prayers are with their families and loved ones at this difficult time. Since our last meeting, I've had the privilege of spending some time at the 22 factory, where we did some filming for Holocaust Memorial Day. This was a wonderful experience and it was lovely to hear how even back then Wakefield welcomed people that had no home, that we welcomed refugees. It was always a pleasure to hear how welcome Wakefield's been since then and still continues to be as a city of sanctuary. My charity continues to receive much needed donations from residents throughout the district. I will be eternally grateful to their contributions. I was recently delighted to welcome to the parlour the people from the Engineer Society that run the trains in the park, which I know my predecessor spent a lot of time there, who give us a cheque for quite a significant amount of money. So I do welcome and thank everybody that's contributed to my charity. I've also welcomed and had the opportunity to attend the inauguration service for Canon Dr. Jason Rhodes, the newly appointed Canon Precentor at Wakefield Cathedral, who will also be a support to myself in the Mayor's office over the coming months and years. I was also delighted to attend the special service of choral evening song to mark the 17th anniversary of the accession of Her Majesty the Queen to the throne on Sunday. Thank you, colleagues, and that concludes my short announcements. As no deputations have been received for today's meeting, we will now move straight on to agenda item 7, which is the leaders' reports. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First thing I'd like to do is to welcome our new colleague, Councillor Womersley, to join our group, and I'm sure that they'll make a great contribution to our team. So, thank you for and also, I can't let this go without, I know it was in January, we didn't have a council meeting, but the children's services, it's been absolutely amazing. We were good in 2 categories and outstanding in 3. And what a marvellous achievement. And it's really down to, and I know Beatrice is not here, but you are, and it's great that you're with us. And we do thank you, Beatrice, and all the team, and also the scrutiny under our Deputy Mayor. How all the scrutiny committee came together to deliver this for Wakefield. It's a tremendous achievement. But I'd like to pay tribute to Margaret Isherwood and how marvellous it has been, Margaret, since you took over. I knew you would be good. I told you you would, but you've been outstanding. And I think we'd all like to pay tribute to you and your team. I'll have a few announcements to make. The controlling group would like to recommend that we offer the freedom of the city to Lock St Oswald. Lock St Oswald, you wondered who I was going to say then, Tony?
I thought it was me.
Lock St Oswald has worked tirelessly with the veterans and the community, and I think it's well deserved, so I hope that full council will support that. Tracy Braben will be coming to see us in the summer, probably in the July committee. And then regarding the Queen's Jubilee, what I've asked is that we put £1,000 into each ward for a community event. This will come out of the neighbourhood funding. So if you all get together, look at your ideas with your community group and talk to Councillor Cummings, and she's the one with the purse strings, so she will be sorting it all out. And then on the energy prices and the situation across our district, it is grim. It's grim in every area across the districts. But you know, the inflation costs and the costs of rising food, etc., and the fuel is making things very difficult for people. So I've asked officers to look at putting more resources into our welfare team to enable them to deal with the increased call for help that we shall no doubt get, and support for residents across our district. 18 months ago, we set up the Residents Recovery Board, and that's gone from strength to strength, looking at ways of how we can help people who are falling more and more into poverty. This board is chaired by the Chief Executive of the Citizen Advice Bureau, Simon Topham, who's done a fantastic job and he's a great partner to have. We've helped children, we've done so much, as you all know we have. But last November we ran a benefits campaign, and a further campaign is now being planned for April. So I hope you'll all get involved. And I know so many of you do so much in your communities now, but the communities need us more than ever. So I hope that we can support that. And then the council tax rebate, the government announcement is welcomed, £150 for our residents. And to put people's fears at rest, we will be getting the money up front, and we do hope to pay that money in April. It's not going to be easy to administer it because not everybody pays on standing orders direct debit. So we will have to find ways of dealing with that. We are getting funding to help with resources, but we will need a lot more resources to help with it. I always think that government, they make these decisions, and some are good and some we don't agree with. This one we do agree with, but it's always down to local government to sort out how we're going to do it. But I know that Neil and his team will find a way of sorting that out. So we will let members know how it's going to operate when we move forward on that. And then, of course, on the levelling up agenda, the levelling up starts and is best led within local areas. And Wakefield welcomes the proposals going around further devolution, but it's essential that any promises around enhanced power go hand in hand with devolved funding and decision making. So we support the government's proposals, but unfortunately many of the policy levers to deliver them lie largely in government control, and we want more control for our council. The shared prosperity fund is a start, but we look forward to having a lot more influence. And then we signed up to the ethical care charter put forward by GMB for our care workers. And then finally, we got some money from the government that we could spend on various things, but what we've chosen to do is spend it on our care workers and other people in the domiciliary residential nursing, council managed care homes, supported living and day opportunities, and we are giving a bonus of £500 on a pro rata basis, depending on how long they've worked for the authority or how long they've worked for the employers. But we want to boost the pay packet. We value and recognise the efforts of these skilled workers. We don't want to lose them from the sector. And importantly, impacts on the local care people receive. I hope this well-deserved pay boost demonstrates how important they are to us and how valued they are. And we will continue to urge the government to fund better pay for frontline care workers. I think that's all for me. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Are there any questions on Councillor Jeffrey's report? Councillor Gordon.
There were a few questions, but there's a couple of comments too. It was just in terms of, you mentioned the council tax rebate that residents will be getting from central government. I just wondered, obviously there's been a draft budget proposal for next month's meeting put forward, which obviously we're going to Cabinet for you to consider. I just wondered what scope there is for this council to do more to help people as they're facing an unprecedented cost of living crisis, one more I've certainly not seen in my life. The other thing that I just want to touch on as well was in terms of, you mentioned that the new West Yorkshire Mayor, who's not so new anymore, she's moved in office in the year. Wondered, you said she'll be coming in the summer, you said you think it will be July. When will we have confirmation that that's actually happening and we'll be able to put questions and ask and scrutinise her in her role? Obviously I was very vocal in the proposals to have this position in the first place, and it's quite irksome that we've been left with someone who we've yet to see or hear from in this chamber. We've not been able to hold her to account, so can you confirm as a matter of urgency when she will be coming and what the format for that meeting will be? I do welcome the £1,000 that you mentioned for community events for the Jubilee. Obviously it is now the 70th year of the Queen being on the throne, and she's the longest reigning monarch in this country of all time. The money that you mentioned, I just wondered to what degree will we be able to close roads and put on street parties? Is that something that we will have? I suppose it's probably something from Matthew more than himself. Will we be able to do that and have proper celebrations? And is that going to be for one-off events, or can we scatter them throughout the year? So just any more information on that would be really welcome too.
On the £1,000, it is a one-off payment for this Jubilee weekend, but it is down to councillors in their own wards to work with their communities, see what people want to do. Yeah, Tracy Braben, we do need her to come. We need her to be here so we can hold her to account for how we feel about how things have gone. And I can confirm that the first council meeting that we have after the elections, she will be here. And we will talk to committee services about the format. But I think the main thing is to get our business done quickly. Perhaps no cabinet reports, they can be sent out. And then Tracy can do a question and answer session. And I think I set out in my report earlier about what we are trying to do for people across the district. And as you know, you are a member of the Recovery Board, and I expect you to play a full part in what we're doing to help people. As I've said, people need us more than ever, and we've got to be there for them.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Jeffrey, you raised the issue of children's services, and I think it's just a bit much that we're congratulating ourselves on getting to a level that we should have been at in the first place. And it's only because we're going from a very, very low level, it's not much of a fence, much of a fence to jump. And I just think it's, we're out there we should have been years ago. That's all we're saying.
Councillor Jeffrey.
Yeah, I agree. We weren't in a good place. But what I think the achievement that we've done is in 3 years we've done what no other authority in this country have achieved the standard that we've got in 3 years. So I don't make any apologies for mentioning it. And I do think it's disappointing that not one of you actually congratulated the team and the officers for their achievement.
Councillor Keith.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, just going back on that point, as a former head of the Children and Non-Abuse Scrutiny Panel, it was, unfortunately, we went into those times, but it was where we were at that time. My concerns are now that we've come out of this and we've got a staff that have sort of shown the way of how to do it with other areas and not too far away going into similar measures that we would in. We want to make sure that our staff doesn't get poached and tempted to go somewhere else. That's my concern. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Jeffrey. Did you want to respond?
No.
Councillor Tully.
Just on the issue of paying some government to assist with some of our less well-off citizens. During the COVID recovery period, it was a nightmare for some people to try to claim a few quid from this council because these councils were hamstrung by central government's diktat on who could have this money and who couldn't have it. And there's hundreds of our residents who don't like names, but they're just about managing racket and always seem to fall the other side off. And apart from the £150 you welcome as a counter tax rebate, they will also have the buy now pay later £200 to pay back. So it's just asking whether or not there could be any scope for any movement regarding the way that we administer any discretionary fund going forward, take into consideration some of our people who don't qualify for universal credit or just slip to the side of the thresholds, but nevertheless are struggling day to day, week to week, to meet up with what's going to be a very, very difficult period going forward with energy bills and the cost of living again. Thank you.
Councillor Jeffrey, do you want to respond?
Well, I would think Sue said so. I mean, I totally agree with what he says, and we will do everything we can to help people through our recovery board, and we will move forward with it. There's a lot to be done, but we're determined to do it.
Are there any further questions, Councillor Jeffrey, on his report? We'll now move on to agenda item 8, which is to receive the Cabinet Members' report in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 11.1. Cabinet members have up to 5 minutes to present their report, and there are 15 minutes allocated to enable each Cabinet member to respond to any questions or brief comments on issues raised within their reports. Councillor Hemingway, would you like to introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In moving my report today, I wish to add a couple of items which have come in since it was first drafted. Following inspection of Wakefield crematoria by the Federation of Burial and Cremation Authorities, the Council's bereavement services have received a glowing report, scoring 99% on overall performance and 80% on environmental measures. And I'd just like to take this opportunity to extend our gratitude to all staff in bereavement services who've done an incredible job keeping the district going through the very difficult period of the pandemic. Secondly, I'd like to draw members' attention to the recent climate scorecards that were published for councils across the country by independent research group Climate Emergency UK. And this showed Wakefield as next to Leeds as one of the top performers in the region and above average nationally. We know there's always more to do when it comes to climate action, and we welcome this independent feedback. And with that, I move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Hemingway. Are there any questions on Councillor Hemingway's report? Councillor Akbar.
Councillor Hemingway, you begin your report by stating you want to see trees planted and not cut down. Much respect to you and I support your view. And I also see you being out around Wakefield planting trees this weekend. Can I ask, what about East Month? In East Month, the council are ripping down the trees over and over and over again. The Park Hill Colliery Estate in 2001, 400 trees were planted by our children, supported by the council. Those trees are now 20 years old and they're now being ripped down. What message are we sending out on the environment, on our duties, how we respond to trees? We're cutting down old trees and planting new trees. What's the point in doing all of that? The residents of Eastmore are quite disappointed. This morning they've been out applying ribbons to them trees. I understand that it's a balancing act and there's a need for residential development, but when will you stop hammering Eastmore? When will we be left with any greenery at all? And the last thing I'd like to ask, reluctantly, but it's been put to me by residents, are the rules more relaxed because the council has got financial interests in Bridge Homes? Because that is the very application that's been granted. This relief road, Eastmore itself, has just been hammered with new and new homes, and the trees have been taken down. And my view, and the view of the residents I represent, is that the council has a very hypocritical approach. Thank you.
Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I thank Councillor Clark for raising this important issue. I know it's causing a lot of concern in the local community, and it causes me anguish as an environmentalist to see when trees are potentially to be felled. And it is important that as an environmental friendly council we are consistent with our messaging. We do want to be planting more trees and only removing them where absolutely necessary. I think, as you've acknowledged, planning is always going to be a complex issue. The committee have to consider a range of factors, not just the environment, but a national policy, local policy, all sorts of issues that have to consider to reach a fair and impartial decision. I do understand the particular concerns about the community ruling in this case, and discussions have been taking place within the council about what more can be done to try and save some of these trees. We've also been approaching Bridge Homes to try and see if any of the trees might be saved and see what mitigations they might be able to put in place. So I can assure you we're taking this issue very seriously, and we will be providing an update when I've got more back on that. I'm not able to comment about the relationship between the council and Bridge. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but obviously I'm responsible for planning, so I wouldn't want to comment on that. But hopefully that addresses your main issues regarding the trees, and we'll certainly be in touch when we've got an update.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Any further questions on Councillor Henry's report? Councillor Gordon. Councillor Akbar, I'll keep you in the loop. Councillor Gordon.
So, in regards to the trees policy management, I touched upon, obviously it's really good news that it's been updated and reviewed, and I do welcome the fact that in there it talks about discretionary policy for people who might not be able to prune back or manage their own trees in regards to people who are elderly or have any other instances that might, might stop them from doing so. The main sort of concern that I have with this is that every time that I've been in touch with anyone to do with trees, there is a chronic understaffing and an inability to manage the existing tree stock. So by introducing this new policy, are we going to be providing any more funding or any new staff to make sure it's enforceable and worth more than just a piece of paper or the laptop it's typed on?
Thank you, Lord. I absolutely agree with Councillor Gordon on that point. I think it is an issue that we've known about for a number of years now, and we need to do more about it. That department has come under budget pressures, it has been put as part of austerity. We are recruiting an additional arboriculturist officer to support that team. We've reviewed the policy, and the change we're making to it is a minor change, so it's not going to drastically increase the workload of the team. But I do feel that we need some discretion in that policy, where somebody may be under the law not able to undertake the maintenance that the council would do so. So hopefully that does have some discretion to take into account very specific circumstances. But I don't think it will be open for years as it were to a waiver of applications. But if you do have any individual circumstances, I'm very happy to discuss those with you.
Thank you, Councillor Henry. Any further questions on Councillor Henry's report? Thank you, Councillor Henry. We move on to the next agenda item, which is the portfolio holder for children and young people, Councillor Isherwood. Would you like to introduce your report?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. want to thank the leader for the support you've given us over the last 3 years, 4 years, in relation to children's services. And I think this is the right place to acknowledge the tremendous work that's being done to get children's services to the point where they are today. It was a difficult journey, and we've travelled along it, and we've got to where we are, which we never envisaged when we actually set out. I remember when I was first appointed, somebody said to me, "Oh, you've been given the poison chalice." Well, I didn't quite look at it like that. But I could see that we had work to do, and the officers, the staff, the partners, everyone involved, young people, have made sure that we've made that progress and got to the point where we are today. It isn't finished. We still have a lot of work to do, and actually, as you see in the report, we are determined to not let up on our improvement, and will continue to strive for new targets. That is what we are doing, and that's what we will continue to do, because when we do this, we're not doing it for us, we're doing it for the children and young people out there, their families that need that help and support that we give them. So I have no qualms about coming here and praising the people that made this possible. And with that, I will hand it off to Vanessa.
Thank you, Councillor Isherwood. Are there any questions on Councillor Isherwood's report? Councillor Homewood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just saying to Councillor Isherwood, I sort of repeat what I'm going to say, what I said to Councillor Jeffries earlier. That's all you did. You guys have been running the show for 50 years. You know, that's all you did was get another jockey to ride the horse. You were still the trainers, yeah? You were the guys who let it get into that state. So let's not have this kind of denial, oh, it's great, look what we've done. Well done to the officers that did it, but these guys were brought in to sort out the mess that you got supervised.
Councillor Isherwood.
I know it's nice, Madam Mayor, and I would take them more seriously if any of you lot had even bothered to try to help us to get out of this mess. But you all just sat back and let it happen. So I do know your remarks, but I take no notice of them. Sorry.
Councillor Stansby.
I take exception to that. We did not sit back. Many of us attended the committees and we pushed. I know councillors who are no longer with us raised concerns early on and were dismissed. They raised concerns about, you know, some of the children's homes and where the children were going out when they weren't supervised. And I know for a fact that the issues were raised. Now, yes, credit to the officers involved. But yes, I echo exactly what Councillor Homewood said. We should never, ever have let it get to that stage. And yes, I'm very relieved that we have got back into a good status. And yes, credit to the officers who have done the hard work to get it back in there. And are we making sure that we have safeguards in place to make sure that we never, ever get to the stage where children are at risk from this council services again?
Councillor Isherwood.
I think I've already said, Madam Mayor, we are striving to achieve even better than we are. It would be useful. I have actually invited the leader of the opposition onto the previous leader and the current leader to have a meeting with me to discuss how we can move forward with children's services with the assistance of the opposition. But I'm still waiting for a response. Well, I have had a response, but I haven't had a date given when we can actually meet.
Councillor Gordon.
Obviously, this has become a political football already between both sides here. What I would just add on this matter is I do agree with the point that has been put forward by the Conservative group. You don't get brownie points for fixing the mess you made. The real travesty here is that children are at risk in this district due to the absent and failing Labour administration. Might not be this one, might have been a previous one, you're still all complicit in it. At the end of the day, you don't get to mark your own homework now and pat yourself on the back. The point that remains is you're saying that other people haven't come to fix the mess that you were responsible for. You've just there said that you want to work with the leader of the opposition. There's other people, not just the Conservative groups, in this council chamber. So if you broaden your gaze across and actually look for constructive things rather than just batting it back and shouting down people who are holding you to account. At the end of the day, there are many cabinet members, current and former, who've had handsome special responsibility allowances and this district are saying. They're the ones who've had their hand in the cookie jar and not done their job.
Councillor Wren.
Yeah, I think it'd go remiss of me, to be honest, from 3 years ago when I was sat up there with a number of colleagues and denouncing the leadership, the previous leadership, Councillor Box at that point, around this specific issue. So there's people on this side and obviously that side that were saying these failures shouldn't have ever happened and should never happen again. And I just want to say to the leader, our leader of the council, the new leader of the council, the fantastic job she's done, but the fantastic job that Councillor Isherwood has done as well. And if we're talking politics, and we're talking about it never should happen, it should never have happened. But you only have to look east of this district to north, east Lincolnshire, that have failed their children, and that is a Tory council. Thank you.
Councillor Swift. Councillor Swift.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quickie in relation to Councillor Gordon's comments. We haven't been marking our own homework. I mean, it's the Ofsted report that's kind of that said what level we've achieved. So, you know, whatever else, we're certainly not marking our own homework.
I'm glad you agree with the rest of my comments.
Are there any further questions on Councillor Isherwood's report? Councillor Fowler.
Madam, with your consent, could I just, getting away from this particular subject, could I just ask for permission to ask Councillor Isherwood a clarification of the question I previously asked her about...
Councillor Haynes, if it's not on this report, you cannot ask it. If you want to ask Councillor Isherwood a question, you can always put her an email and ask her a question. If it's not on the main report,
it is on page 3 of the agenda.
Or is it on her report?
It's not in the report, but it's on page 3.
No, Councillor Haynes, it's got to be on Councillor Isherwood's report. If you want to ask her a question, you can certainly bob her an email across if it's something that's not on her report.
Okay.
Councillor Farmer, did you have a question on Councillor Isherwood's report?
No, I didn't have a question, just a comment basically. It's not aligned with anything over there. As a father to a 16-year-old daughter who's going through her exams this year, can I just say how shame, words fail me that after all the time like previous year, my daughter's been, and not just my daughter, but many kids throughout Wakefield district, throughout the whole of the country, have been getting themselves ready for mock exams, for exams in May, for the GCSE, for the A-levels. And then to be basically told on Monday that a lot of the syllabus is not going to be taken through. The kids throughout the district have lost many weeks revising on subjects that they're not going ahead. I cannot understand, and this is why words fail me, why a decision like this, whoever needs to make a decision, the civil service or whatever, didn't 6 weeks ago before Christmas tell the schools exactly what was going to happen. And as a father,
Councillor Farmer,
I feel completely let down.
Councillor Farmer, I understand what you're saying, but is that a question or a comment on the report that Councillor Isherwood has presented to Right, in future can you just keep it to the report? Thank you. Any further questions or comments on Councillor Isherwood's report that she's presented today? No. Can I move on to Councillor Cummings? Portfolio of Communities, Poverty and Health.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things I want to pick up on. And some have been mentioned in the leaders' report, and that is the excellent benefits campaign that happened. I've copied the report to everybody in the council, and it's fantastic that we managed to help 187 families get £382,000 back into their pockets. And to address a question I think that Councillor Gordon asked the leader, we do lots through this council to help those people who are in, I mean, within Darren's portfolio, we've got the energy, we do the vouchers, we do food vouchers, we've got food aid network. It's all that we do as much as we can with what we have to help those struggling families and children. And I'm really pleased in Margaret's report that we've got a Happy Healthy holidays again, which is going to feed those children who probably wouldn't get fed during the holidays. So I think we can pat ourselves on the back for some things that we do and we get right, and those are the things that we actually do get right. And the second thing I want to mention, I just want to draw members' attention to agenda page 27 and 28, which I did put in the January report, but felt I needed to reiterate it. That's the Safe Talk training that's been offered to the 21 wards across the district. Anybody who have community groups that you want to pull together to do some Safe Talk training, I'm sure you all know what Safe Talk training is. It's about having those difficult conversations with people who may have thoughts of suicide. The training is absolutely free. I'm running one myself in my ward later this month for 20 people, and they're going to benefit from that. So all you need to do is contact Chris Waffen. His email's on the email address list. Have a chat with him about what you want to deliver, and I'm sure he will accommodate it. And I urge all members in this council from across the wards, no matter what political party you are, please take up that training because our residents need that. Times are getting worse, I'm sure we're all aware of that, and we need to help them. So with that, Madam Mayor, I move my report.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. Are there any questions on Councillor Cummings' report? Councillor Spencer.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, just a quick one, Maureen. Regarding the energy vouchers, I have been contacted quite a lot by the residents. I was just wondering, how much was the funding from the government for this, and how did we publicise it? Were there instructions to residents on how to do it? Because it's been quite time consuming.
Yeah, I sympathise with it. It's been quite for me as well. I signed the letter and people have rung me, emailed me, tapped me on the shoulder in all of it. Yeah. The energy vouchers, we would do it differently if we were to get the funding from the government to do it again. We sent out 29,000 vouchers, 10,000 of those vouchers were to older people, and older people don't have probably the same things that we have. They might not have an Android phone, they might not have a tablet, and they might not have anybody to actually get out there and help them. So we pulled our hands up. We've just done another release because a lot of people thought it was a scam, which I'm sure you've heard, and so have I. So we've done another release because some people will have thrown the letter away and not taken advantage of it at all. But we would do it differently, and it did come from the money, the COVID funding that we got from the government, and it's been spent in holiday vouchers previously. We did energy vouchers this time, and we will be doing food vouchers again, the last time in February, but we would do it differently if we were to do it again. So yeah, but having said that, we've had lots and lots of people who have said thank you, and as I mentioned Aldi, a lady came up to me in Aldi and she sort of tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Are you coming?" So I said, "Am I in bed?" and she thanked me, and it was excellent. But conversely, there are people out there who thought it was a scam, and some that may have thrown it away. But we have actually reproduced it again. So if anybody does come to you, Melissa Malady, you know she's excellent. More than happy to take your phone calls.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask Councillor Cummings, when the lady tapped you on the shoulder, did you tell her that this was from the government rather than from you?
Can I just say I didn't politicise it?
No,
Any further questions on Councillor Cummings' report? Councillor Gordon.
I just want to say, obviously in your report you mentioned the community shop in Nottingham, and obviously this is in our ward, and it's something that's really added a lot of value already. I know myself went to go open it and have a look around. I went across to one of the community shops, I can't remember where it was, one of the towns outside of Barnsley, sort of back end of the summer last year when I first heard about the community shop that was coming to Nottingham, and really pleasantly surprised at the difference it's already making to so many people who are on that precipice of, or are indeed in poverty, or in work as well, which is a real difference that it's making to those people. I would just say, at first, there was a lot of hesitation from local residents, and there was an element of sort of people felt that they would miss out because you meant to be on a means-tested benefit or be in receipt of something that would make them able to shop there. But it is really nice to see that offering free spaces in there to build community cohesion is something that's really opened up the town to a lot of people, and building and fostering that sense of community, you know, in the aptly named community shop. The other thing that I would just add is I did get in touch, I believe, with the leader of the council a little while back when I first heard about the community shop thing, and raised concerns about the possibility of having duplicating services that could be happening over the road in the community hub at the former Canley Club. I just wondered, given that the community shop has additional space in it, there's another floor to it at the bottom, and there is, they are, in my understanding, looking for partners to work in that. What would the council do in terms of looking to consolidate and build together and work with the community shop rather than doing something across the road? Obviously, we want to make sure we have services, but I don't think we should be overly politicised saying they've got to be in one place. As long as people get that service, get that help, get that support, I think having a sort of holistic approach to that and trying to have a meeting to discuss what we can do to build that bridges, and perhaps with some of the money that the council had committed, if it could put that towards a community shop, it might leave some left over from the regeneration for local services and leisure facilities in Nottingham.
Yeah, I'd like to see people go to where they feel comfortable, and some people feel comfortable going to a community shop, which I think is a fantastic facility, and we are, through the Resident Recovery Board, looking to replicate that across the district. We've got 4 pilots that we want to work with, which are a similar facility, because you're absolutely right. People have relied on food parcels, and we've all worked, across the district in a variety of food banks providing that. But people sometimes want that dignity of actually going and deciding what they want to eat and paying something at the end of it. And I think that's what that shop gives them. And yes, we could get some more facilities in there, we are working with them. But I want people to be able to go where they feel comfortable. I'm not going to go into individualities, but I'd like to see the community shop aspect across the whole of the district, because I think it will be needed for the foreseeable future, and I think they're doing a fantastic job there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cummins. Councillor Farmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You can pass on my thanks regarding the enforcement team. I had a meeting with the enforcement team yesterday, and the Oxford Council would like to pass on my thanks and our thanks to Lee Ward and Bob Prince from Cable, with some really, really positive things that made me feel that maybe there might be a possibility of getting rid of these people who like it. So we pass my thanks on. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for Councillor Cummins? Right, we move on to the portfolio horticultural woodland sport. Councillor Gray.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just to quickly highlight 2 things in the report to members from the room. Firstly, everyone will be really happy to know the Rhubarb Festival is back for this year, which sadly, because of the pandemic, didn't hold last year, but an online event. This year's going to be bigger and better than ever. We've got our usual chalets, I think we're up to 75 now, so a lot of delicious food and treats to be bought there, rhubarb themed. But new for this year, we've got a special gin experience. And also, we really wanted to get all of the businesses right across the city centre involved, because as we know, thousands of people come outside the cathedral, but we've got a lot of really great food and drink places that don't all the time benefit from that football. So we're going to have a special trail. So at each place, you're going to have rhubarb themed cocktails or desserts or whatever it is, and also a competition. Take a selfie with it, tag yourself in it, you can win some money. It's all going on, so something for everyone. And secondly, just to highlight, with our libraries, everyone know we've got a library in Wakefield, we've got one in Castleford, we've got one in Pontefract. Really small compared to your bigger national libraries, but we tell some really amazing stories about the places across our district and the people who live here as well. And one thing we're trying to do is put out little smaller displays that sort of interact with people that wouldn't usually go to a library and try and book them in. Our latest one is in South Elmsall Library, and it gives you a little taste of what it's about there. You can see dolphins apparently swam at the back, which I find pretty amazing. I definitely want to know more about that. And vintage carousels, private museums in people's gardens. It's just really telling the story of the people from this artist who's been working with them. So really great story there. I'm looking forward to visiting and find out all about it. With that, Madam Mayor, move me report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions on Councillor Graham's report? Councillor Hayes.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Recently we had an email from the management at Aspire in the park that they were not taking any more bookings for Aspire. Is this a temporary situation, or is it being affected by people from outside the district applying for Aspire?
Thanks, Councillor Hayes. It's a really difficult situation at Aspire at the minute because it's such a state-of-the-art building. As you know, you've been, it's absolutely fantastic. A lot of our Aspire users with the package get to use any facility they want, and everyone is flocking to the very best. Even though Featherston's recently had an upgrade and is pretty high-tech as well. One of the problems we've got is in January and February, obviously everyone's trying to lose weight after Christmas, so the membership goes through the roof. And with COVID, we've had to space out the equipment within the gym, which means we haven't got as much equipment in there, the capacity isn't as high, and that's created a real issue for us. So whilst we have had lots of new people joining up, the quality of the offer is not where I would like it to be at. So I did take a difficult decision to freeze the membership temporarily to make sure that those who are paying the money for that good service are getting to use the equipment. We have got new equipment on order, be with us as soon as possible. We'll increase that capacity, we'll be able to open up that membership again. But in the meantime, we're trying to encourage people to use the rest of the facilities right across the district to take some of that pressure off Aspire, which I think is working. Looking at the numbers. Hope that answers your question.
Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, it's mainly a comment, Madam Mayor, and it's about the libraries situation. I just want to say a big thanks to the staff in the area library. I mean, years ago, libraries were for people to go to read books or quiet. If you go to Airedale Library now, anytime, there's a big table in the middle there. We've got people from different age groups doing everything from knitting clubs to quizzes to a number of different things. And the staff have set up the Friends of Airedale Library as well. And they're linking in not just with things that are happening with the library, but also helping support groups outside. I think they're fantastic books. And I just wanted you to know, Michael, that certainly praise goes for the staff, because it's the staff that are generating and the staff that are coming up with these ideas. So a big thank you for that. It's certainly working in our community.
Thanks a lot, Councillor Shaw. I couldn't agree with you more that our libraries are just, if you've been in them, they're absolutely amazing, and the staff are just constantly coming up with new ideas, and of cinemas opening in Pontefract. I mention it all the time, but just the sheer variety of the offer that they have in these libraries, they could not be more helpful and more passionate about getting young people of every age really to read more. So thank you very much for that praise, Les, and I will certainly pass it on to the service.
Councillor Ed, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just around the Rhubarb Festival. Obviously, the actual biggest event in Wakefield District's calendar is Pontefract Licorice Festival. When will planning start for that?
Thanks, Councillor. We've already begun planning for that, and I am fingers crossed. I hope there's no more restrictions coming in. I'm absolutely sick to death of them. I hope we can have a proper big Pontefract Licorice Festival, and I've already had requests to do very similar things, such as the trail and getting local businesses involved. I think Councillor Jeffrey was asked the same question, so we'll definitely be looking to increase the offer at Pontefract Licorice Festival, because it's so popular. I mean, the town, it's always buzzing, but it becomes, even more alive when it comes down to it. So it is all set to be happening, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Councillor Stay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just a comment. I wanted to say I too welcome the return of the Rhubarb Festival, and I've already put the dates in my diary. And I think you're right, Michael, looking at the programme, I think it's better than it's ever been. And that gives such a huge boost to our residents. I mean, they just love it. And not only just it's a boost for the residents, but it's also a boost for the local economy and for businesses. The footfall increases and everything
as we discussing fabulous library staff, I just want to place on record and I want to ask the board of them to contact our local library staff in Southampton, because last Friday, some of you may be aware, some of you may not be aware, that we had to close our library for the day following an almost fatal issue where an elderly person took part. Was very unwell. I was very disappointed that we had this doctor's surgery 50 yards down the back of the library and nobody come out of that doctor's surgery to deal with this person. But our library staff, Vicky, the name of the lady, I forget the name of the lady, but they CPR on this person and they did what they needed to do for over 20 minutes until the police and the ambulance service arrived. It's my information that this person did survive. Just, and I'm disappointed, and I've written to the local doctor's surgery next door, and I'm disappointed because I thought there's a qualified doctor in there with Scotland with a 150 yards across the road. We had to get one of the volunteer members of staff on the avenue across the road to come over the defibrillator to allow us to allow the staff to do what we need to do. It's just a place on record that we, you know, we're sometimes quick to condemn our staff. This is true, but these two ladies on this particular day certainly say this person's life after the commendation from this council would go miss for our wonderful staff at Southampton.
Councillor Graham, before you answer that, can I suggest Councillor Tully, you put them forward for a nurse at Council Ward and we'll sort something out for them as well. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Tully. Just I mean, you've said everything. What those workers did to help that person, I believe he was in a state where it took a sustained period of resuscitation, and without that was the end of his life. So it's extraordinary, and I couldn't agree more. They deserve all of our thanks, and we'll definitely be contacting them, thanking them, and doing everything else to show our appreciation. It's such an amazing story. I wasn't quite sure I should have mentioned it, but I'm glad Councillor Tully did, so thanks for that.
Councillor Keith.
Yeah, Chair, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's following on from Steve's experience. My wife and I attended the local Caledonian Blues supper the other week, which is at Gaskell's Restaurant, which is, as you know, is the restaurant run by Wakefield College, where all the young trainees get a chance to cook and to serve people, etc., etc. There was an incident very similar to the one that which very fortunately ended up with a fatality later on. But an 18-year-old out of the thing from cooking and performed CPR, performed all the things, and got there. Well, people from your paramedic, wonderful people came and got him taken away to hospital. And nominated Rebecca for a mayor's assistance because that last deserves a man like a dustbin lid.
Thank you. I think you know, we need to recognise all the wonderful work that these people have done to continue to save people's lives. But we are veering off a little bit from this report. Councillor Rhodes.
I think what we've heard today here is absolutely appalling in terms of the lack of care given to that person in those circumstances. And in my role as Chair of Adult Health Scrutiny, I think I'll be involved in it as well. It's reminiscent of everybody that's coming to us and telling us how sad they are, how worried they are about even getting face-to-face appointments with doctors. And here we are.
Councillor Rhodes, I do agree with that. We need to stay on track with Councillor Graham's report.
I apologise. Being brought up and accepted in the meeting, Madam Mayor, I assumed that it was okay to comment on it. If it's not, please tell me.
Yeah, we'll try to keep on track because it's quite a long agenda today, Councillor Rhodes. So if you can ask a question or comment on Councillor Graham's report, we would appreciate it.
I'll follow through that then, if I may, Madam Mayor, because the previous discussion was allowed. So I'd assumed again that this would be quite rightly in the agenda. And through Michael then, I will be saying to Michael as Chair of the Adult Social Care, that I certainly will be following up and the staff in circumstances like this across the authority, and I will say the authority in every department, will come to a situation, like Councillor Tully has said,
It does need reporting, it does need identifying, because there's no staff, and that's why we come across, when we've had to come across and use defibrillators, etc., through training by the authority, by other bodies, are actually saving people's lives. And those lives matter, no matter how much it is. So congratulations to Paul, and just to say, I'll be following up because I'll get all the details, Michael, but tell the staff that from my position on this authority, I'll be looking into it, and thank you very much as well.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes. Following Councillor Byfield, would you like to introduce your report?
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. Let's turn this on. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present my report to Council. One of the main functions of this portfolio is to support, whether it's through our residents, through Skill Up, Step Up, or our employment programmes, through strategic housing and much needed energy and heating programmes, or through our adult education service. And to support business through the financial support grants, COVID for example, or business advice, and to bring new businesses and innovation across the district. And it's also internal to support by our property services team how we as a council operate. But to do all of this we need great staff, and having great staff is paramount. And I'm delighted to be able to be part of that team, who deliver support across many sectors, across this whole district, across this whole council. But finally, I would like to give Council Farmer, Homewood and Taylor, sorry, an update, for a couple of points that did not it. Firstly, we've identified the preferred contractor through a tender process who will be doing the work on the Ossett Town Hall.
Only 3 years later.
And it's hoped that this contractor has got a cracking track record on restoring and refurbishing historic buildings with recycling. The work is scheduled to take a long period of time, unfortunately, and it will be summer or autumn 2023. Okay. And secondly, the old library building. Ward members will be aware that this building has got significant amounts of asbestos within its fabric, and so it's got little appetite from the private sector to take this building forward. So we have agreed to invest in this property and remove the asbestos and then move it onto the marketplace to see what happens. So with that, Madam Mayor, I will move this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byfield. Are there any questions or comments on this report? Councillor Farmer.
Sorry.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, fantastic update on that. Obviously, the line has been a main talking point for us in the last, I think the last 7 or 8 years actually. But I do appreciate what the information you've given. I'd also not like give a lot of credit to the side. On this particular point, I will give a lot of credit to the council. Because I approached, or 3 councils approached last year about the Oxford Library. She told me that she had a meeting with Lynn for this late last year in December time, and she contacted us early January and told us that work was going to be done. So I'd like to place on record, I'm sure Tony and Andrew will do exactly the same. I'd like to place on record and thanks to you for this, because it's great when a politician actually does what they say they're going to do. It's very rare. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Would you like to move on? Councillor?
No, thank you.
Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I just thank Councillor Byfield for personal assistance he's given with the distribution of this Omnicom to a charity in my area. There seems no end to this generosity from our government over COVID.
Councillor Cruz, Councillor Byfield, would you like to respond?
Sorry, I thank you for that, but all I did was make a phone call to a very skilled individual within that team who sorted that out. It's that team who's taking credit for that.
Councillor Cruz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm very pleased for the Ossett councils that has happened there. It's been a long time coming for Ossett. I've got to say that I'm very, very disappointed that Hobby Business Park has got a little unit at the back there, and it's called a decontamination unit. It's a World War II, grade 2 was...
Councillor Cruz, that is in Councillor Byfield's report. It's a question on Councillor Byford's report.
Well, it's redevelopment.
No, it's not in his report. But he said he will talk to you about it afterwards.
Sorry about that, everybody. Thank you, Madam.
Councillor Homewood?
At risk of having Councillor Byford thrown out of his party, I too am going to congratulate him. For doing what he said he did. Thanks for that. And I'm really grateful. And thank you also to Denise over the library, because something needed to happen with it, and it's going to happen, and that's good. So well done. You know, I look forward to seeing you join us in due course.
So no further questions, Councillor Byford's report, we'll move on to Councillor Morley's report, portfolio of Valley and Highways.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not much else to add to my report, Madam Mayor, but last year we had a very lively, long debate on parking on pavements that turned into a debate on grass verges, Madam Mayor. I think we all suffer this problem throughout the district, throughout our wards. So I'm pleased to say, Madam Mayor, that Highways will be contacting all local members to put forward suggestions of locations where they would like to see grass verges protected, or I say Arden, but we're using grass green, so we can free up some parking in them areas. We all know with this, so we've got a 3-year plan. We will do so many locations per year, and that's a real positive for this district and for us as local members. So with that, Madam Mayor, I'll move my report, and I'm quite happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for Councillor Morley's report? Councillor Isherwood.
It's just a comment, actually. I think an idea of going green is the common planning in these new estates, cropping up all around the district, is the plan to make the roads wide enough for the cars to park on. Because currently, as you drive around, I mean, you've got to park on the pavement, so or park still on the pavement, so the cars can get through. And that is something we're looking at, standard picking, that we actually start looking at some wider roads, and not let the cars as many as we can.
Councillor Farmer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Looking through the portfolio map, it says road conditions, so I'm tapped fast question. As we get out of roads, I can't get my head quite around it, because I'm 3-4 times, not only in my ward, but also in the adjoining wards. But you do road works, you put the road works up, you put the cameras up, and then they disappear Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then they come and remove the lights on the Wednesday, causing absolute mayhem. 3 times in the last 6 months that happened in my ward and in the adjoining ward. Could you explain why that happened? Under road conditions, Madam Mayor, under road. So, apologies.
You see. Madam Mayor, yeah, we do have inspectors going round. This is probably our utility companies when they're going down to do road works, and we can find now if we are made aware of them or when we're going round inspecting them and they have kept the road works on and there's no need for them, we will find. We will penalise utility companies, the street people we're doing around there. We'll put more inspectors than before. That's what we are doing in Council Farm. So if you have the locations, we're into member services, they're not have to go out and inspect them. If they're not carrying on what they should do, not going to rent that work, we will find them.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Morley, I think this is welcome news in terms of the issues about grass verges, and look forward to the improvements I'm sure that's going to come out of it. Could I just ask if it's worthwhile to consult with WDH in terms of the properties across the district? Most of our estates were never built for the amount of cars that's on them and the width of the road also. So would it be worthwhile liaising with them to know if they have plans over the next 3 years for any hard standing that may help across the boards at the same time as you're planning with local members the advantage of the grass verge or a screen?
Yeah, Councillor Rose, we will do. The problem that we've had with all the WDH, when we come back to them and say, well, over 50% of private houses now, not always our problem. We will always work with WDH. We will see if we can cross-fund different schemes. But it may be the fact that we'll have to, us as a council, we have to do this by ourselves, but we will work with those people there.
Any further questions for Councillor Morley? Right, we're moving on to the final cabinet report, which is the portfolio holder for resources. In the absence of
you've all seen. And on agenda page 55, the COVID-19 response awards. That's both good news. And also the item at the top there called a love letter to Wakefield, which I have to say put it in when I saw it, so I can tell you a bit more about it. It's on Valentine's Day, there will be a thank you video from the council, which is basically a love letter to Wakefield, working with the Kilo services and various other people who have produced this video, which is saying thank you to everybody who all the work they've done, frontline workers, key workers, and presumed everybody who played by the rules and stayed and didn't have parties. I don't know, but I'm sure that will come on. But the video, we are on our social media channels, the main media will be asked to release it as well, and it'll be all over the place. There's a message with this video, and it's going to ask anybody who views it to think about who they want to thank, and they'll be asked to send in their various thank yous. These responses will be gathered and used for an animation later in the week. There will be a briefing going out to local members, anyway, or going to all members by Friday. So just to let you know, because I found it a little bit puzzling. The other one to quickly mention is Ask for Angela campaign, which has started, I believe, and I know it has something my daughter at 24 was feeling awful safe. I think there's somebody she can whisper to if she feels stop her in trouble or unhappy in any particular venue. So with that, I'm happy to take questions, although I must warn you I may not be able to answer them.
Are there any questions for Councillor Mitchell?
Thank you. It's not perhaps a question, it's just a comment about the Esperanto. It does work. My husband, I can't remember where it worked, my husband asked the man down the bar, you know where Angela is? And it was followed up. You know, somebody came out and asked me if it was okay.
Thank you very much for letting us know. That's fantastic news that it does work, because I think when I saw it first, suddenly my daughter thought it was basically for her and her friends who have a bit too much to drink and need to get help somewhere or other. But it's obviously for everybody, and that's good to know. Thank you for sharing that.
Any further questions for Councillor Mitchell? No? Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. That concludes the Cabinet Members' report. Moving on to agenda item 9. This is to consider a report detailing Council's corporate plan for 2022-24, building a fairer future. Is the report moved?
Move the report, Madam Mayor.
Is the report seconded?
Second the report, Madam Mayor.
Are there any questions in relation to the report? Councillor Gordon.
So, I don't really know where to begin on this. Having read through the report, the key elements throughout it that fundamentally don't ring true. We have quotes that I've lifted from this report that talks about what Wakefield Council will do for residents, but it simply does not, and I don't believe it will. It says that they want genuine community and resident participation, yet this is something that the Council's track record in is completely and utterly lacking. Again, I cast your mind back to, and I know you've heard it before from me, the consultation we had in my ward about the local area master plan, where residents identified what they wanted to see, and the council chose to do what it wanted anyway. Why should anyone across this district look at this document and think that the council is going to set out its new vision and is going to adhere to it when its track record just doesn't stack up? It talks about everyone being able to achieve their potential, but in places like Nottingham, where services have been cut and consolidated elsewhere, people can't access those opportunities. When we look at things across this district, and it talks about recognising the specific needs and focusing on health and well-being for people from disadvantaged backgrounds across this district, the one thing that sticks out in my mind was the very first door that I knocked on before I decided to stand for election in my hometown, which was a guy who lived opposite where the former sports centre used to be. He'd been socially prescribed and told to go into a swimming pool where he'd be able to access one of the few forms of exercise that he could do. When bus services were cut and there were not ramps for him to get on buses and he couldn't get through to Pontefract, he stopped going out. His life chances, his potential was cut short by this council, by the Labour administration and Labour councillors opposite. So why now would I believe that this report, that's promising opportunity for all, more hollow promises, why would I now think that anything has changed when clearly nothing has? Furthermore, in here, it talks about wanting a greener Wakefield district. How is a council that is trying to axe and de-zone the green belt going to increase access to green spaces? It's completely counterintuitive and defies exactly what we're setting out to do. Not only that, does this same strategy, the corporate plan, talks about monitoring and targets, and should be something that we can refer to back and point out how we are measuring and achieving what we're setting out to do. But lots of the targets in here are vague, vacuous and meaningless. It talks about support. It doesn't give any concrete examples, no proper targets. It's more wishy-washy waffle that residents in my ward, in Nottingham and Weybridge, in places that we've knocked on doors, in places like Crofton and Castleford, where residents are just sick to the back teeth of nothing getting done and more of the same. It talks about towns and villages being regenerated through investment and lists millions of pounds for other places, but once again, doesn't even add up to what the council has committed. I appreciate this isn't a budget, and it's making reference to things that are already set going forward. But once again, how can we be expected as councillors to get behind this and vote for a corporate strategy that is ignoring areas of deprivation and where people are being left behind? That'll be why we won't be voting for this strategy, for this corporate plan, because it doesn't meet and doesn't do anything for residents across this district. It's more of the same, meaningless.
Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to reply to that mixed comment and question?
Yes, thank you for your political speech, but I know you're up for election so soon. I don't agree with anything you've said. This corporate plan sets out what we're going to do across this district, and a lot of other people don't agree with what you're saying. I know you want to represent your own area of Nottingham, but we're doing a lot for Nottingham. You've just heard about the community shop. You know about the Pelham Club. No, don't interrupt me. I can interrupt you. You have no manners at all. But I don't agree with what you're saying, and I'm not going to answer any further. Just a political speech.
We're politicians, didn't
Councillor Gordon, you've spoken once, let the news finish. Are there any other comments or questions on this report? Councillor Homewood.
Carbon and net zero targets to be achieved. You know, you're going to raise something later on about costs of energy, and we've talked about it in here. This country is responsible for about 1% of the carbon in the atmosphere in the world. And if we cancelled it all tomorrow, by the time half-time came round in the next football match in China and everybody turned their kettles on over the in China, you know, this 1%'s gone because the thousands of coal-fired power stations have got just bang, gone. What we're doing is smashing our economy to pieces over an unattainable target. And we say, oh, well, you know, but we're going to go net zero. What are you going to do? We'll import our gas in ships. Because that's, you know, this is one sort of envelope we're living. You know, it's not just to bring. This is gameplay. I mean, it's nonsense. And, you know, I'm fed up with it, and I reckon the public are pretty fed up with it as well.
Are there any other questions or comments on this report? Councillor Hemingway, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, I couldn't disagree more with Councillor Lawrence. It's bizarre about net zero. I mean, at the end of the day, the British government has signed up to achieve net zero by 2050. The world has signed up to achieve it by various targets set at COP26. This is a real and existential threat to our way of life. And simply ignoring it and pretending it doesn't exist isn't going to save the planet, isn't going to save ecosystems, it's going to impoverish millions of people, devastate nature, and it wouldn't be responsible for us as a council if we didn't plan to address climate change, to address the ecological crisis in our documents. And actually, what we're seeing is more and more people, particularly young people, are interested in this, want to see the council take action, and if we didn't do it, we'd be abrogating our responsibility. So I think you're wrong on the science. We need to do something about this. And actually, from an economic point of view, as a Conservative, I think we would probably support the idea of transitioning to a new economy, more sustainable economy, and that's where the jobs of the future are going to be. So this council is putting forward an excellent plan that adapts to that challenge, and if we didn't, we wouldn't be doing our job to look after this district.
Councillor Ed, do you have a question or comment on this report?
Just a comment, I mean, it's been brought up by Councillor Gordon about the part in this report about community engagement. There was a meeting not so long ago around the Nottingham Master Plan. And I don't live in Nottingham, don't represent Nottingham, but I went there as the deputy for Councillor Morley, bag carrier, whatever you like to call it. However, what was stark to me, who wasn't there, about community engagement, about Nottingham's master plan, was Councillor Gordon.
Councillor Ed, have you got any further questions or comments on this report? Councillor.
We don't sit on SRAs raking in tax.
Councillor Gordon! Councillor Gordon, there's no reason for that behaviour here. Councillor, would you like to ask your question or comment?
Just a very brief comment, Madam Mayor, thank you. Like Councillor Gordon, I also have read the corporate plan in full, and I felt that it is a very aspirational document, to be fair. And I would say that this is what we need to adhere to. But however, at the moment, at the current stage, it is lacking of some solid KPIs. The outcome has been measured, so that we know this is going to be something that we are very proud of in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Isherwood.
Just a quick observation, to be honest. I keep listening to Councillor Gordon bleating on about and what I think that's really represents. But if I remember rightly, last year there was something like £4.2 million worth of investment in Nottingham. And Councillor Gordon voted against the budget.
May I have a point of order now?
What point of order?
What's your point of order,
There is
Councillor
no £4.2 million in the council budget for Nottingham, so it's an incorrect statement.
I think we're steering off where we need to be at this moment in time. We are looking at the corporate plans for 2022-2024. We've taken some questions and comments on this particular agenda item. Has anybody else got any comments or questions on the agenda item that we're discussing at this moment in time? If not, I do suggest that we take it to the vote. All those in favour of this agenda item 9, please show. All those against, please show. Any abstentions? That is carried. I'm going to move on now to agenda item 10. This is to consider a report detailing the health and wellbeing strategy for 2022-2025. Is this report moved?
Yes, Madam Mayor, in moving the report, I just add that the health and wellbeing strategy provides a high-level vision and direction for health improvement for the Wakefield district. The purpose of the strategy is to outline priority areas and where we would like to work together to improve people's health and reduce health inequalities. The strategy aligns to the corporate plan, which has just been approved, and it is based on a belief that we go further and faster to improve health and well-being and reduce health inequalities in the district if citizens and services work together as equal partners, and if more is done to help people stay healthy and so prevent ill health and the need for more intensive services. It is a statutory requirement for the local authority and the CCGs to work together to assess health needs and to publish the health and wellbeing strategy that sets out how they will address population's health improvement and health equality. The strategy focuses on 4 main priorities that are based on the recommendations of the Marmot report: fair society and healthy lives, a healthy standard of living, giving every child the best start in life, preventing ill health and sustainable communities. This has been through an inclusive process to refresh the strategy, which has included review of the joint strategic needs assessment, engagement with public led by Health Watch, engagement with partner organisations, discussions with adults, public health, and the Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The Health and Wellbeing Strategy will form the basis of annual plans for the Wakefield District Health and Care Partnership over the next 3 years. Delivery of the strategy and its impact will be monitored by the Health and Wellbeing Board. An easy-to-read document will be produced for the public. And I'd like to offer my thanks to Ruth Unwin, who is the author of this report, for the dedication and time that she's put into this. And for that, I move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Cummings. Is the report seconded? Are there any questions in relation to the report? Councillor Stanley.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, well done, Ruth. It's a comprehensive report on health wellbeing. Has there been any consultation with the planning department? Because one of the major factors in combating obesity in children and adults, and also improving mental health wellbeing, is the ability to access green space freely and widely available. And unless we've got planning on board so that we, stop building on green belts, we can have this. It's a great plan, but we need those green spaces and green belts.
Councillor Cummings.
Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Stansby, and I think we've talked about this, and I know it's been talked about at the scrutiny panel as well about green space, and if it is that we are building on green space and we're building lots of houses, then we do need to be a statutory consultee to ensure that the services are delivered into those areas. I think we have fallen down on that one previously, and it is something that we've identified. I think it is quite important that we are statutory consultees to any planning application that involves green areas. So I'm fully on board with you with that.
Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On behalf of the Road Use Group and Health Committee, can I say I welcome this report from the Council. The importance of this in overall terms across the whole of the district and the ability to support health and well-being in our community is vital. There was a recommendation that went, Madam Mayor, from our committee to the Health and Wellbeing Board in terms of the member organisations that are listed in the report, and indeed the value that we put on these members of the organisations in taking responsibility for each of those that are present to actually implement their part in the outcomes that we wanted from these organisations. The view may have been in the past that people might have considered it as a talking shop. To a degree, I suppose that's welcome that people speak together, but the committee actually recognised that the value of implementation and outcomes would be something that would be a great achievement, and to actually be monitored and implemented and recognised in the reports. So my thanks to everybody as well, Maureen, your team, Ruth, your involvement as usual, and I welcome the changes this is going to bring about, Madam Mayor.
Any further questions or comments from Councillor Fee?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things here. One of the things that I was very remiss when you started out with the Santos and Bob, the tribute to Bob would be the fact that he was a very knowledgeable and active councillor, but after he left being a councillor, his work would be remembered for the work in the health authority as the chair of the health authority. So from that, coming on to this report, yes, it is like the similar one that we discussed and Councillor Norman pointed out about the previous report. Sometimes it has to be painted with quite a big broad brush in the respect that you want to aim to do things and that you cannot guess what the specifics are going to be. My comments are on this is that when we view what we've done this, and I appreciate it was done before the report came out yesterday, but yesterday we received the news that lots and lots of elective surgery are going to be postponed for a further 2 years and various different things. The impact of COVID and the impact of the shortfall of spending is going to impact this. And so therefore I think what we've got to do is to set out this as an overall strategy. But let's be realistic. We might fail with some of these because of the workload that is involved. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, Chair. South Contract area is particularly not well served with health facilities. Probably aware of that. I just wondered, is there a possibility of existing contractors' partnerships, doctors' partnerships, producing satellite surgeries that could go into community buildings within that area to increase because we had a failed version of it's getting difficult, and there's increased pressure coming from housing planners, and I'm just looking at the possibilities of existing doctors' practices having satellite surgeries where they could go maybe 2 days a week or something like that. Has that ever been considered?
It is down to individual surgeries, as you're probably aware. I think it might be something that the chair of scrutiny might be interested in listening to, because I think it's the scrutiny panel that probably has a little bit more input into that. So it might be something we want to discuss with the council as well.
Any further questions on that report? No, thank you. Any, all in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That is carried. Just to make you aware, we will be taking a short break after the next agenda item. Next two agenda items, sorry. So we're going to move on to agenda item 11, which is to consider a report on the procurement options for the Council's external auditor. Is this report moved?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, please, I move this report. The reason for it is very clearly laid out in the section report from the warrant. What we're asked to do is to approve that the Council continue to opt into the Local Government Association established statutory body for the appointment of external auditors for the 5-year period from April 2023. The reasons for recommendations are laid out on page 1 to 4, and this is just as a continuation of what we're already doing. It is nothing new. If anybody wishes to ask a question, please do.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Is the report seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Are there any questions in relation to this report? Any comments? All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That is carried. Moving on to agenda item 12 is to consider a report detailing the cumulative impact assessment and review of a revised statement of licensing policy. Is this report moved?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. In moving the report, this statement of licence policy and draft cumulative impact assessment have to be revised and published every 5 years. The policy provides guidance to prospective applicants and the approach the licensing authority will take when considering determination. The policy covers predominantly the sale of alcohol and regulated entertainment. The cumulative impact assessment measures the impact of the numbers of licensed premises in any one area. The objectives of the impact assessment are the protection of children from harm, crime and disorder, prevention of public nuisance and public safety. These policies have been consulted on widely and are shown at 8.1 of the report. The licensing committee approved both the documents in January and referred the decision to be adopted to the council. The recommendation is at 3.1 of the report, and that is that the council adopt a revised statement of licensing policy and draft cumulative impact assessment and approve for publication. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cummins. A bit of a mouthful there. The report seconded. Are there any questions in relation to the report? Are there any comments? All those in favour, please show. All those against? Any abstentions? That is carried. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a short 10-minute break, a reclamatory break, and a quick drink of coffee, and we shall return in 10 minutes, which will make it 25. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start with agenda item 13, which is following a motion of council last year. Consider a report to review the council's policies and practices in relation to the harassment of women in the workplace. Is this report moved? Thank you, Councillor Isherwood.
In doing so, there's a step forward.
Of course you can.
I'm pleased that it actually came from Council Ahmed and it was following the rejected awful death. The set of people in sorry, the worst of not was equal to me. So the council asked the management board to do an inquiry into what the policies are within the council regarding harassment to women in fact harassment anywhere. I think everybody would agree here that nobody can stand for it. Some of my colleagues in the play could believe at professional level. And the boy was always the one that got down first. Nobody will tell you that. So when they asked me to form this little committee, I thought, well, it should be really female councillor-led. I don't know what it's like to be honest with female, and I've never experienced bullying in my life, you know, so I think besides I made a problem last week, but never experienced it. So I asked Anne-Marie if she'd chair the working group. I asked Councillor Binns if she'd be a member of the group. And I asked Councillor Hayes. I asked Councillor Hayes if she'd be a member of the group, along with David and myself as support. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way, as Anne-Marie was, in the majority of meetings, was the only female there, which was a great pity. But I must say at this point, Anne-Marie did an absolutely stunning job, an excellent chair, and she was willing to go on to her house and you know, such things. But I must compliment her. She was absolutely brilliant and challenging questions that males probably wouldn't have any idea what she's talking about. She did challenging all the way through. We had HR and all the way through. With 3 meetings, as the terms of reference dictated. Meeting 1 focused on getting understanding of the current policies which are ancient. Meeting 2 focused on the support afforded to the complainant. We thought that was lacking a little bit. Meeting 3, we met with the trade unions, but for obvious reasons, the complaints of husbands, they're from the shop. You'll see as part of the inquiry, we met with HR, and then an input into the current self-consultation of dignity statement, the dignity of work statement. You'll see on our report, it contains 30 recommendations, and I hope council can support all 13, then we get them into the council to find policy documents. We're hoping that the report will not only help eradicate harassment, but will create a culture whereby employees are not afraid to speak up. That's one of the things that I'm probably a bit shy about doing that. If they witness any unacceptable behaviour, I particularly like recommendation 2, where you see it's to strengthen the council policy on the use of IT and social media and warn against online harassment of employees, even when it takes place on personal devices and outside the workplace. I think that's a very important thing. So informally moving the report, I would like to thank all those who took part and hand over to the council who is going to second it, and she will probably fill in as many gaps I have. So,
Thank you, Councillor George. Is the report seconded?
Second the report, Madam Mayor. Please, may I have a comment?
Of course, you can.
I would just like to thank everybody who contributed. I would just like to thank everybody who contributed to the cross-party support that we've had for all the meetings that have taken place. I do believe that this piece of work shows how scrutiny in action. I just think it's been a really valuable piece of work that everybody has contributed to, and hopefully shows how councillors can impact policy. I hope that this is the first of many pieces of work that will come to council that scrutiny has done. It is an extremely important issue, and as such, I do hope that council is supportive of our recommendations, as Graham has said, which we feel that we can usefully incorporate into the final iteration of the council policy documents. So thank you so much for allowing me to take part. Thank you for your kind words, Graham. But I do think that it's a really valuable piece of work, and hope that we can see the fruits eradicating this kind of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brooke. Are there any questions in relation to the report? Councillor Collins.
Yeah, look, I massively welcome this report. I really do. I see the work that's been put into it. And I think we do have a duty to prevent sexual harassment. Certainly in the workplace, women should be able to live without fear or harassment and violence in the workplace and anywhere else. So I fully support all the recommendations here. But I think, and Anne-Marie and Graham and I spoke earlier, that we need to go a little bit further with this one. The government tabled a bill for the duty to prevent sexual harassment, but it was last year and it's still sat on the shelf somewhere. So I wonder if you would accept a recommendation that we actually write to the government, and whoever it is that's in charge of getting this bill through Parliament, to actually urge them to help and support the work that certainly is, that has happened across party here. But I welcome the report. I think it's an in-depth report. The 3 meetings you've had, you've really got to the bottom of what's happening here. And I think it also says a lot about this council and how we look after our employees. So I would like to ask if that is at all a possibility.
Would you like to respond?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think yes. I think we've taken the first step forward, and it's up to the government now to try and catch up with us. But it's still going to be council policy, so we will still be, we'll still be working to that if it's passed yet. But I can't see any reason why we shouldn't contact them. So what we've done and what are they for, what's their future plan, what they're doing.
Councillor Glover, as a seconder, do you agree with that we should write to the government and...
Yeah, we do.
Thank you for that. Councillor King.
I was just going to say that what is proposed should become a proposal, and I was really prepared to say it, that's all.
Okay, we've got it seconded, so I think we're all right with that now. Are there any further comments or questions on this report? Councillor Isherwood.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. It is a great report and very badly, well, I wouldn't say very badly, but it's definitely something that we need to note and take notice of. And with that in mind, I'm making a recommendation with that and just say I will be speaking to the corporate director about what we can do to follow up on your recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Isherwood. Councillor Names.
Can I just say this? Your working group worked on the harassment of women. Will you be extending your work to the harassment of all vulnerable adults?
I'm against harassment of any kind, to anybody, vulnerable or not, or whatever it is. And that's when we drifted in to the dignity of work statement. So, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we want to do. It's getting people. I think what key ones as well is that the NHS, and I know the student areas within council, people are feeling a bit stressed, a bit anxious, and that's sort of feeling that these people can go and talk to them. What we'd like to see that as well being transposed into departments with the student people that they can go and say, you know, it's scaring me or whatever. So we're hoping that's one of the recommendations. But if we approve all the recommendations, it's not just within everybody. It's everybody. That's what I want to say. As I said in the opening statement, it's can't divide all the rooms.
Councillor Cruz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it's just a comment to say I fully support it. I think it's wonderful, it's decent work that you've done. Much needed, but you know, and I would like all councils around the country to take our lead, to be honest with you, and do their own piece of work into this, so we can all be the same, we can all be safe in our workplaces. Well done, everybody. Thank you.
Councillor Ferguson.
I'd like to commend the report too. In my capacity as diversity and equity champion, I'm really interested in supporting with the kinds of jobs that Councillor Isherwood was talking about, and the health service and so on and so forth. Women are disproportionately situated in those kinds of jobs, and that's why I know there is a gender issue here. And the 2010 Equality Act is way out of date. There's, lots of work on. We need to keep up the pressure to get those changes. But thank you for the
Hopefully it's just stepping back there.
Thank you for that. Are there any further questions or comments before we move to the vote? Okay, let's move to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? That is carried. Moving on now to agenda item 14, this is to deal with any questions made by members. 3 questions have been submitted by Councillor Gordon, with the required notice being given. The first question is to Councillor Morley, Portfolio Holder for Planning and Highways. Councillor Morley, would you please reply to the question from Councillor Gordon?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, for the last few weeks I've had many meetings with the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, with the lead member, Councillor Kim Groves, Public Transport, and also the Mayor of West Yorkshire over some of the savage cuts to bus services that we'll be debating later that's happened to the Wakefield district. We've been managed very fortunate to plug some of them gaps, but the service that we yet haven't found a provider for, or to plug that gap, is the Nottingham to Castleford service. Madam Mayor, I think throughout this chamber all agrees to have one of our major towns right next to another major town is not acceptable. We will continue working with the Combined Authority. We will try and find some solutions for that, Councillor Gordon.
Councillor Gordon, did you have a supplementary question for Councillor Morley?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the supplementary, it's pretty straightforward. We keep in touch and let us know what's happening and meet us and help work on it. I did email Councillor Kim Groves, but I don't believe I got a reply from yet, and I also emailed him myself. As you said, obviously it's in a car for 10 minutes, 30 minutes by bus, and doubling that journey to an hour is going to cut people off from work, family, people that might care for, and it really is going to devastate lives.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. The second question from Councillor Gordon is to Councillor Byford, Portfolio Holder for Regeneration, Economic and Growth. Councillor Byford, would you like to reply to the second question?
Councillor Gordon, thank you for your question and pointing out that this Labour administration, as you like to refer to us, is investing in Nottingham. You state in your question that we've said that there will be £50 million invested. And I can confirm that our plans have moved on since Cabinet approved the Nottingham Vision and Action Plan in March 2019. We now expect that once all the short-term, medium-term and long-term plans are completed, this will result in an investment pot of £57 million. And this, as I'm sure you must agree, is a significant regeneration and investment program in your area. The action plan featured over 90 specific actions, and since its launch, 37 of them have been included. This has resulted in £3.2 million being spent. Plus, there is another £6 million currently being committed to be spent. Some revenue projects like Step Up and some retail enhancements and digital workshops for residents. along with major projects including the Warwick Head Partnership, Calendar Club, and a major street lighting project. And then if we look further ahead to the long-term projects, these will bring in an estimated £48 million. And this includes the Notting Hill Relief Road and residential developments from WDH and the private sector. So, I am glad to inform you, Councillor Gordon, that this, as you like to keep calling us, the Labour administration is investing in Notting Hill in your ward. But it doesn't stop there either, because we've been working with our local Member of Parliament, and I hope you have as well, for a levelling up bid, which, if successful, will bring in an additional £20 million from government. And this will be invested in the hilltop area of Nottingham, creating a massive overall investment pot of £77 million. So in summary, the Nottingham Vision and Action Plan, which was published in 2019, will create new homes in Nottingham, will create new employment land in Nottingham, will create new job opportunities in Nottingham, will create new road infrastructure in Nottingham, will create new public, open, green spaces in Nottingham, will improve the town centre of Nottingham, and our partners will create a new education site, including our learning and skills, and a new health provision. Now, that's what I call investments, and we will continue to do this until we've done the job of delivering massive investments through this investment pot in Nottingham and the surrounding areas. Thank you for your question. Thank you very much.
Councillor Gordon, have you got a supplementary question for Councillor Bartlett? Barrington?
Sorry, apologies.
So the supplementary question is, well, thank you for the update, and I did ask for the progress that's been made. Obviously, you'll welcome any money that comes from either Wakefield Council or central government, whoever it is. I don't particularly mind, as long as we do get the investment that has been promised. The other point of this question was how much money has been spent on regeneration. So yeah, coming to the other part of that question was how much money has been spent. Could you just confirm, was that 3.2 million over the 3 years, and is there any sort of numbers on or timescale on that? Because you've said estimated throughout this, so you know, again, I come back to what is actually confirmed coming down the tracks rather than estimated. That's what matters to people. What's actually hard cash, that's what makes a difference right now.
Councillor Bartlett, before you answer that, can I just ask which one of those questions is a supplementary question because you asked two?
It's all one big long question with an answer.
No, which one is the supplementary question?
The how much money is actually committed in the short to medium term, not estimated.
Councillor Bartlett, would you like to answer that question?
I'll watch the video back later because I'm not sure that I would say it's estimated. 3.2 million has been spent, and I said another 6 million is committed to be spent. So there were the two numbers that I gave.
And the third and final question is from Councillor Gordon, and it's also Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Gordon, would you like to ask your question of Councillor? Oh, sorry, yeah. Councillor Bartlett, would you please reply to the third question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What's an out-of-context question if there ever was one, but obviously designed for British voting. So let's look at the facts of these two buildings. Nottingham Town Hall. This building was leased to a community group back in 1997. Since 2017, we, the council, have been trying to reach agreement with the trustees of that building with little success. The repairs and maintenance of this building are held with the leaseholder and the trustees. Colleagues in our community team are working with the trustees and have been to try and establish a potential schedule of work which will carry out in the building. A business case has been created and is currently going through the various approvals processes. As for Fernbridge Community Centre, this is a more interesting one. Simple question, why would we as a council wish to be involved in a building that's never really been part of our portfolio of buildings? This building was subject to a lease arrangement done by the then Nottingham District Council in September 1969. And the lease was for a period of 60 years. It doesn't expire until 2029. And that lease clearly states that the trustees took on the building and all repairs. So I would respectfully suggest that you speak with both sets of trustees and support them in finding ways forward to meet their needs, the needs of our community, and the respective needs of the leases. Thank you.
Councillor Gordon, have you got a supplementary question for Councillor Barford?
I just wonder what the difference is, given that we talk about working with partners like WDH and the private sector on the master plan and regeneration. We're happy to work with them in that context, but you just said there that we've not, why would we be interested in a building that the council don't own? But you just said that you're interested in other things that the council don't own, so it's a bit counterintuitive.
What's the actual question?
So, like, what is the explanation for that? That the council are interested in working with private partners when it suits, and why we don't want to work with private partners that do so much for the community?
I think I've answered that question.
Thank you, Councillor Barford. We're moving on to agenda item 15. This is the final agenda item, which is to consider motions proposed by members. 5 motions have been received. The first motion is from Councillor Akbar. Councillor Akbar, would you move your motion to council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I speak about Islam, I begin with Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most gracious, I present this council with a motion to adopt the all-party parliamentary group's definition on Islamophobia. Islamophobia, the definition is Islamophobia is rooted in racism and is a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness, together with the explanatory guidelines put forward by the Coalition Against Islamophobia. This definition of Islamophobia will assist in establishing a mechanism for accountability and improved regulation. The definition will also assist policyholders with a working definition to address this very issue. And if this council adopts this definition, it will demonstrate a pragmatic commitment in tackling and rooting out Islamophobia. The APPG on British Muslims have worked tirelessly to come up with this definition, and believe me, it must have been a very difficult decision to come up with this definition. But I trust that members will agree that this reflects on our views on what Islamophobia is here in Wakefield. I understand that it's been adopted by over 800 organisations and a handful of councils across the country. Islamophobia is of course a growing issue in the United Kingdom and here locally in Wakefield, unfortunately. For those that argue Islamophobia is no longer an issue, I'd like to present some data and some recent events. The official government website on co.uk states that in 2020 to 2021, Muslims were targeted in 45% of all religious hate crime offences. Just to reiterate that point, that's 45%, meaning that Muslims experience far more religiously motivated hate crime than any other particular group. Just to talk about some events here in Wakefield, over the last couple of years there's been events where people have been assaulted in Islamophobic incidents, women have been harassed and targeted, children have received verbal abuse. The list goes on, we could sit here and talk about it all night. But I'll highlight some of the key issues that have happened in recent months. Members of this very city, councillors of this very city have received abuse. 4 councillors have received Islamophobic letters, the contents of which were extremely nasty, violent contents, and it's unacceptable. That matter remains an ongoing investigation, but we as a city must show that we're stomping out Islamophobia and we don't accept it. One of my own particular experiences is handles left on my vehicle. Of course, those who are in touch with Islam will know that consuming pig is forbidden for us. This was wedged in between my number plate which bears my name, and I believe it was a targeted Islamophobic act, which was in direct correlation with these letters. It was around the same time, and given the contents of them letters, it felt quite clear to myself anyway. I have been a councillor for nearly 9 months. In this time I have received more Islamophobic abuse than you could ever imagine. I have been involved with living in Wakefield, and I never thought Islamophobia was such an issue. I didn't believe that people would use my religion to give me abuse or cause offence to me, but it is for some people. I've received hate mail on my official council inbox, I've received hate mail on my social media, I've received comments in person. You name it, I've received Islamophobic everywhere. It's right, I'm not the only person that faces this, the residents of Wakefield do. And as children, our parents taught us to turn the other cheek, to ignore it, and be somewhat immune to it. But I'm sorry, there's no immunity to Islamophobia. Why should there be? It is unacceptable that anybody should be made to feel that way or have these comment to make just because of their religious beliefs. I'll go as far as sharing that I have been called a terrorist, and that's not uncommon. Many Muslims face that comment of being called a terrorist, and accusing Muslims as a collective of being responsible for real or imagined events caused by one Muslim or a group of Muslims is very common. You know, if we're being tarnished with the same brush, if a Christian man was to commit an offence of rape, would you say all Christians are rapists? No, you wouldn't. That is outside the realms of Christianity, as is with the realms of Islam. You know, if a message to the non-Muslims of Wakefield, if you want to see what Islam is, look around you, the walking, talking Muslims. They are what represent Islam, and further to that, to the Muslims, my message is just remember what we represent in the great religion. You represent and act accordingly. Is my time almost up?
You've got 8 seconds now.
Not anymore. Just to finish off, Islamophobia has been mentioned in this chamber, and the leader did mention it on the last occasion. She attended an event, and I do thank her for her support. However, we must go further to take more action. Rooting out Islamophobia requires action, and this action will demonstrate we as a council are stomping out Islamophobia, and it's imperative that we as a council and as a community come together in solidarity to root out Islamophobia where it shows its head. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is the motion seconded? Seconded. Councillor Johnson, would you like to speak now?
I'll speak now. Since the cap has been extremely further, I thought I'd keep it rather short. So, Islamophobia exists in our schools, workplaces, social gatherings, and even in our politics sometimes. It's unacceptable, and I think Wakefield and as council must take action and stamp it out. It's pretty straightforward.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Does any member wish to speak on the motion? May I remind members that speeches must be directed to the question under discussion or to a personal explanation or point of order, and that no speech may exceed 5 minutes. Councillor Isherwood.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully support this. It's a very important motion that's been brought before this council. Islamophobia is yet another barrier to many of our young people within the district, and I think you've spoken very eloquently about the problems you face, and to think of what the young people who face this same problem will face and how they have to deal with it. This is something that we as a council really need to take on board. Thank you.
Councillor Graham.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Fully support this motion, and I'll be voting for it. I think Islamophobia is, an absolute disgrace, and it is out there. I was one of those 4 councillors who received that letter, and what they tried to do was pit one community against another community, which I think is just absolutely disgusting. I've visited every mosque in Wakefield, and every single time I've come away feeling on top of the world because of how nice the people there are. I know you shouldn't generalise, but what a community. And I've got friends here who are Muslim. I know that there's some fantastic work being done. We had the Islamophobia Regional Conference held here in Wakefield, which achieved a lot and brought a lot of people together. The Stand to Racism group do a lot. And us as a council, when we're planning festivals and events, I think the Thorns Park fireworks, one of the reasons we brought them back is because it's something that Muslim people celebrate and can come together on. We don't celebrate all the same festivals and events, but some of them we do. And I think us as a council have a really important part to play across every service in coming together. So fully support it, and I'm sure everyone else in the room will too. Thank you.
Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was one of those 4 that got one of those letters as well. Disgraceful, unacceptable in any way, shape or form, none whatsoever. And as a representative of my community that I've worked with for over 30 years in our ward, I can say here and now, I've always had the pleasure of working with that community, been very supportive, knowing that they are part of our community. Not the side of the community, they are part of our community. And anybody who knows of anything course, pass this resolution, totally supported today, Councillor Akbar. I think it's important that we spread the message out to all our partners. All our organisations that we sit down with represent in this council, that this is our policy, and we'll have the courage and the conviction, if in any way, shape or form, we are made aware that in any part of an organisation that this council sends its delegates to, that we stand up and we be accounted and not sit down and say nothing, because doing nothing is feeding this kind of vile stuff that's going on in our community. And I will add, Madam Mayor, that when this is passed today, we will then pass this on as our conviction to this resolution to all partners out there, that we would want them to support this in their constitution and their work together on behalf of the people of Wakefield.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Did anybody else indicate to speak? Councillor Spade.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Akbar, for bringing this motion, which I do support. Thank you too for sharing with us your experiences, which is just terrible to listen to. And I think we all know that Islamophobia does exist, and we must never ever turn a blind eye to it. So I really support this motion from the council, because we need to challenge it wherever the council encounters it, and all of us as individuals. And I'm very happy to support the motion.
Councillor Ferguson.
I'm happy to support the motion in my capacity as the Labour Group Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Champion, and I wonder if it might be an idea for the Conservative group to think about the role as well, and for us to liaise together in that capacity, and for the Bristol Council Diversity Officer already exists, so we can all come together to address these sort of cultural and structural racism that's at the roots of Islamophobia. And I think it would be a really useful way for us to come together and start to address some of the issues that you told us about. Thank you.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I really welcome this motion. I think it's great to see that the Chamber is united in its support for stamping out the appalling practice of Islamophobia and the appalling racism and discrimination that it manifests in. I mean, like many of us, I was privileged to attend the first Yorkshire Islamophobia conference last year, organised by Muslim community activists in this district, Usman Ali and Jam Majid Khan. The testimony we heard there from Muslim colleagues was very moving, just as we've had from Councillor Akbar today. I think we can send an important message by signing up to the APPG definition, as other councils already have done, and by using our influence, as colleagues have said, to make change happen for our Muslim residents. But I think it's also incumbent upon us, as members of political parties, to take this message further up into our national political parties and to make sure that they have the same commitment to equality and diversity. And I think we can't ignore the fact that both at senior level there are certain things in the Conservative Party and in the Labour Party who don't take this agenda seriously. We've got a Prime Minister who has made some frankly outrageous comments in the past about Muslim women, which I will not repeat here because it's been a very sensitive and respectful debate, so I don't intend to repeat those comments. But we can't ignore the fact that senior figures in the Conservative Party have been calling for an inquiry into Islamophobia in that party for years and have been denied. The Labour Party has not fully got its house in order either. So I think let's pass this local motion and send a strong message, but also take the message further up to our political parties and to government that we want change at national level.
Councillor Akbar has moved the motion. You've got the right to reply. In exercising the right to reply, no new matter can be introduced.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just keep it short and sweet. Thank you to all the members that have spoken. I really appreciate the support on the motion, and I'll take on board all of your comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Right, we're going to move to the vote. All those in favour, show. That's unanimous. That is carried. The second motion is from Councillor Keith, following government announcements this week. The motion has been slightly amended with permission from me. The updated version has been circulated to members and is also available in the chamber. Councillor Keith, would you please move our motion to council?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to bring to light in 1973, an international event led to a 3 pence rise per gallon, not per litre, per gallon, still off target in delivering such. And we have fallen very foul of old tales of fuels indigenous to our country being so cheap that they won't have to be metered to charge for them, only to find that successive governments have utilised the sale of those fuels as an indirect form of taxation. The fuel crisis will affect domestic, commercial and industrial consumption alike. I went to a meeting in a social club recently where the steward told me of a rise in the gas bill of £3,000. If that is true for them who run such a facility with a traditional sized concert room, it will be the same for community centres, local halls, whose revenue streams are the local community groups and voluntary groups. The cost of lettings will therefore rise, the cost of being a member of those groups will therefore rise, and I fear it will put their existence in jeopardy. That is why I call for the measures in this motion, which are costed and called for by the Labour Party at national level. It means we can deliver effective relief to domestic customers where it is needed, with immediate effect and without any worry of how and when they will have to pay it back. People need help to face the remainder of this winter, not someone to add to their list of creditors. Offering a lifeline in the shape of a loan is so typical of a government that's becoming synonymous with saying one thing but doing another. There's always a catch. There's always a clause in the small print, the lack of trust. They will give you some help, but they won't it back. But who knows that when that payback deadline dawns, if the situation may be worse and you can't afford it then either. In the last decade, this government has presided over the reduction in our storage capacity of gas, lack of development in our nuclear capability to provide energy, disastrous performance over green deals and green homes initiatives, and currently is on target with the commitments it's made to carbon neutrality. However, this is not the time to ditch our commitments to those goals. In fact, it is the time we should be doubling our efforts to transition towards them. Nor is it the time to rediscover the potentially disastrous idea of fracking. If this crisis and the one of 50 years teaches us anything, that reverting back to burning fossil fuels is not the answer. Fracking gas in Britain would be sold at internationally set prices by private companies who will profit from it. Yes, we could tax those profits, but we should tax those profits. But wouldn't the companies who frack in the UK endeavour to find some offshore taxable pathway? Plus the fact, can we trust a look after our pals in big business Tory government to impose those taxes? This country needs a sustainable, affordable, reliable, readily available energy supply that is under our control and dictation, reducing our dependence on global supply. It needs to be carbon neutral and non-pollutant. The proposals to increase the tax from 40% to 50% on energy companies on seen profits and receipts, coupled with the scrapping of VAT on fuel and expanding the warm homes discount scheme, can put money into the system that is needed now to protect the energy price cap. Yes, not charging VAT will benefit the well-off too, but we can address that anomaly with buying the income tax. However, if such action on VAT will result in the less than a family having £10 extra to put in their meter to keep warm this winter, then let us do it. Speaking of meters, would the £200 loan get to those who buy their fuel through a secondary meter in communal housing, where the landlord gets to build the primary meter? Also, what about those who pay on a prepayment system, who pay more per unit? Should they be loaned more? Or are those already in debt to energy companies? Will the £200 rebate that's followed be clearing some of their debt first, leaving them literally out in the cold again? I thank my colleagues Councillor Byford and Councillor Cummins for the recent information on how this council is working to help our citizens, and say to those citizens that if you are in need of help, contact this council. We have some dedicated professional staff who will offer whatever assistance they can. Let us use this time of fuel crisis, when the inequities of our society are laid bare, to propose a better way. I think the funding stream suggested by Labour are that better way, and I commend this motion to the Council.
Thank you, Councillor Keith. No, I'm on time, that one. Is the motion seconded?
Sorry, he's the timer, because he's different. I get used to doing the timers and go.
Is the motion seconded?
I'll second the report, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Farrell.
That's okay.
What did you say?
I'd like to speak
Absolutely.
Thank you. Energy bills soaring to record levels, inflation at a 30-year high, food bills also increasing, household finances are being squeezed right across the board. Thousands of people in our district are only just managing to get by even before the further increase to energy bills. The people I represent in Alton Summit-Wood and indeed right across our district are understandably worried about the future. However, it took last week's announcement confirming the energy prices were set to rise by 54%, bringing with it the threat that millions more would be driven into fuel poverty before we saw any action from the government. And the government's response? An inadequate package of measures which includes a buy now, pay later scheme, a loan that bill payers must repay in 5 years that follow. A plan that will only cover a fraction of the extra bills households are dealing with. Back in October last year, the Labour Party announced its policy of bringing in fully funded measures to reduce the expected price rise in April, saving most households around £200 or more. With targeted extra support to squeeze middle pensioners and the lowest earners receiving up to £600 of bills and preventing all of the increase in energy bills currently expected. Labour will pay for this with a one-off windfall tax on the North Sea oil and gas producers. Just to put this policy into context. Shell revealed its profits quadrupled to 20 million in 21, and BP disclosed its profits rose to 12.8 million last year. I think it's fair to say that oil and gas producers have done well out of the price rises. The government is failing on its energy policies and is failing residents across our district. A Labour motion was debated at a council meeting last September, highlighting all the support available locally for residents who are struggling. As the cost of living crisis deepens over the coming months, and it will, I would urge that all elected members keep pushing those messages out so that our residents know that there's help available if they are finding it hard to get by and that we are here to help them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Does any member wish to speak on the motion? Before we do, can I just remind members that speeches must be directed to the question under discussion or a personal explanation or point of order, and that no speech may exceed 5 minutes. Councillor Forward.
Councillor. Yeah, I mean, again, you know, Labour's policy of last year, Labour's policy when you were in government was to sit and mess about, and the boy Prescott failed to build the power stations it was supposed to build. 2005 he announced he was going to build new nuclear power stations. Well, he didn't. You know, he just didn't do it. Why? Because you're all sat hand-wringing. It's the old story, you want pits, you want miners, but you don't want any burning the end product. That's your problem. Your policies are always counter to your own ideals. I mean, it's just nonsense. You know it's true. You know, the dash to gas, who presided over that? Well, you know, it was illegal at one time in the European Union to burn gas to produce electricity. Who got it changed? I think it was Labour, to be honest. So what we get, dash to gas, and they're burning gas, using gas-fired power stations. You know, what we need to do is get real, stop filling the fields, build some nuclear power stations, and stop filling fields full of windmills, because I think it's windy enough anyway. But, oh, no, it's not going to do it. But, you know, I mean, seriously, you know, this is a real problem. You know, we can't just say now, we've got, off the coast of Britain, there's a gas field which Shell want to drill, which has got 35% of Britain's gas needs, which it will provide for 50 years, I'm told. Yet they're not allowed to drill it. Why? Because of, well, we've got to get our carbon footprint down. Well, what do you want? You know, you're coming in here moaning about the sort of price of gas, which I'm not knocking. Yeah, I pay it as well, you know. And, you know, at the same time, you know, you don't want them doing the things that alleviate it. So let's ship it in with big ships and pretend that it's not really ours, so it's not on our carbon footprint. It's nonsense, and somebody needs to do something about it. There's 500 years of coal. underneath us, as my friend over there was telling me earlier. And 600, there you go. We won't be around, right? So, you know, 600 years of coal, and there's things they could have done to utilise that resource. But they don't seem to want to, because it's all hand-wringing and, you know, pretending, let's get some windmills up that are useless when it's blowing too much, and when it doesn't blow at all, you're mad. I mean, it's nonsense. The whole thing's nonsense. Somebody needs to take a grip and stop worrying about whether our 1% of global carbon emissions is going to go down or up, because at the end of the day, it's a triviality.
Councillor Wallace.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. This is a serious debate. Energy is a growing problem within our district, energy prices. So that at the request of Councillor Cummings, the committee where I chair, which is the Skills and Regeneration Scrutiny Committee, decided to look at fuel poverty within the district. It's growing, and it's growing. And this is before the announcement of the rises in fuel prices and gas prices, which is affecting not just us, it's affecting the world. What we found out with our scrutiny meeting, those of you who haven't read the minutes, this will be out, that this council is doing very well in looking after those on low incomes and in helping those on low incomes, doing what it can to help them with their fuel bills. But more needs to be done, and especially now that we're seeing how much fuel prices are rising, a lot more needs to be done. And it's just unfortunate that the excellence programme which has been put forward by Labour, which is right, which as we say has been costed and is very excellent, hasn't been taken up. What we did decide, and it was Councillor Tennant who asked us during the debate, who said, what about 5% VAT? Just remember, VAT on fuel was brought in by a Conservative government. It was to be in two stages, the first stage and the second stage, and quite wisely, the second stage was voted against, so the second stage never happened. And then on the Labour government reduced it to the minimum it could do at the time, which was 4%, which is where it is now. Whatever you think of the Brexit vote, one of the things what I said, and I said it publicly, at least now we're out to go whether you're for or against Brexit, we can look at this 5% VAT. Because that means that every time fuel prices go up, the government gets extra income through the VAT line accordingly. So as a committee, when Councillor Jim brought this up, I asked the committee, and we unanimously decided that we are going to put in our report that the recommendation that the 5% VAT be removed, which is also a Labour policy, and I hope also that the government consider that. So that we help those, because what we've got to now is not just helping those of moderate income, but even those of higher income are going to be hit by the fuel prices. We can't just stand back and just let it happen and say, well, that's the market for you, that's market forces. And we can't just argue as to why the reasons this came about. Germany, for example, has decided not to run nuclear power stations because of what happened in Japan with the nuclear power station, what was affected there. What we need to do is, where do we go from here? How do we help our residents in their fuel bills, what they're increasing fuel bills, what they're going to get? And now, because that the cap will probably be reviewed every quarter in the next 6 months, so I support the motion.
Councillor Stansby.
Thanks, Madam Chair. We partly in sympathy, well, we're all in sympathy because we're all affected by the increase in fuel bills. But obviously we need to look at why the fuel bills are increasing, It's going to be a worry for many people who have never had to be concerned about paying fuel bills before. But this is a global problem, issue. Gas prices have risen globally, and signing up, we have got to admit that signing up to net zero policies, which this council has done, will lead to increased fuel prices for Wakefield and for the whole country. So that is something that we need to look and admit. Actions that we take will lead to further increase in fuel bills. I do want to query part of the motion that says 1 in 8 of our poorest families don't live in Band A to D properties. I'm not sure that's true for Wakefield. I would like that clarifying at a later date, please. Labour have blamed the Conservative government for not providing enough renewable energy, and yet Labour instigated the wind farm plan, which has seen farmers in East Yorkshire paid £15,000 per windmill per year over a 25-year contract. Not one light bulb with electricity has been generated because they're all turned off. As Councillor Homewood has already said, it's either too windy or not windy enough. The motion asks for the removal of VAT on domestic bills, but that wouldn't necessarily benefit those who are worse off, because there's no guarantee that the fuel companies will pass on that cut. And it would, those who are better off, it may, it would benefit them to a greater extent than those who are lower earners or on a fixed income. So, the fact that you've put that it's a fully costed, fully funded plan to ease the energy price crisis, I'm sorry, but it isn't. The government plan gives £350 back, and it gives it to those who are less well off. Not to everybody. Not to those who can afford it. It gives it to the less well off. It gives it to Band A to D. And there is already a plan to extend the warm home discount and to make it eligible, make a further 780,000 more homes eligible. So I'm sorry, but this motion, it's not factually correct, and it's not something I can support.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the motion claims that it is a Conservative government which has brought about this energy price cap change. However, the levies in price already in place, which considerably increase the cost of energy bill, are levies introduced by the Labour MP at Miliband about 12 years ago. So in 2008, the Labour government imposed a series of green levies through the Climate Change Act, which was the brainchild of Miliband at the time. There were, to date, no less than 6 levies on your energy bills appearing under environmental, social and obligation costs. So these levies actually increase costs of the energy bill, yet the Conservative government always have the blame. But this government has put in measures a few days back, actually is fast and effective, and this is a fact published by the Resolution Foundation. Resolution Foundation is a, that's way, but it's a think tank working for the low-income families. And they said here, overnight, they have a very quick, not for the purpose of the analysis, but the outcome they come out is the energy bill and council tax rebate from the government will more than offset the incoming tax rise. And that is from the think tank of Resolution Foundation. So, colleagues, let's have a look at the facts and make sure that we know that this government has tried its best to look after people. Thank you.
Councillor Toy.
Yeah, well, this party of mine didn't call industry, but I ain't intending to spend 10 minutes going over all that about we are where we are. make it quiet. The energy companies are laughing at people in this country. They're like this government, they're trying to take everybody up. And it's pretty simple to me, and it's a pretty simple situation. Tax. It's a windfall tax. So, and I hear all this talk about, oh, they'll not invest. They will. This lot and invest in executing their own mother if they were shoving in it for them. So I'm telling you, we need to make sure that with the windfall tax, we take the money away from the people, the companies who are squeezing people in this country. And to try to suggest it's a generous package is so far away from the truth, it's unbelievable. It's not even touched the sides. Now we can dance around anything about this money, that money, the other. The bottom line is this. Residents that we represent across this county will have to find between £600 and £700 extra to pay the fuel bills through no fault of their own. Now we can look at this method, you can look at that method, you can blame Resolution Foundation, or you can blame green taxes, you can blame whatever you like. The bottom line is, if we're here and we care about the people that we represent, and we want to avoid fuel poverty, and we want to avoid kids going to bed cold, we have to start. My take on it is I'd nationalise energy companies. That's where I'd start. I'd start nationalising that. I certainly would. And then when we can get energy prices to back to where they should be, and if anybody's trying to suggest to me that £350 gift from this government is going to solve the problems that are a million miles away. The people of this country, the people of this county need the money put into their account which will cover the cost of these rising energy costs. And when you've got heightened national insurance, heightened fuel costs, and heightened everything else that's going on, the average family in this area are going to have to find another £1,200 a year to live. Now, if we think that's a joke, we think that's alright, well, let's get on with it, but it ain't. It ain't smart at all. And that's the way that we need to be going. So we need to support this resolution. Support this resolution by the fact that we need to be providing at least £600 this year, £600 to our families, so we can at least keep our houses warm, keep us kids warm, and keep our kids safe. Thank you.
Councillor Akbar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just looking at the government's assistance, £200 is going to be provided as a loan to be paid back at £40 a year over 5 years, £150 cash rebate for council tax, and £144 million in discretionary funding. To me, that doesn't go far enough. I think, of course, the residents I represent and the residents of Wakefield in general are going to suffer. Finding £700 on average more to cover your bills is, for a lot of families, the food bill for the year. And I think things like mental health are going to go through the roof. We're going to see increased suicide rates. It's a major issue. It's an extremely serious issue, and it's really sad that it's come to this. I am with the spirit of this motion, but unfortunately you've lost me when you've to look again at the Labour Party's fully funded plan to ease the energy price crisis. I'm not with that. I don't agree with the Labour Party's fully funded plan. I've had a look through that and it doesn't seem right. I just wish when we have serious issues like this that are going to affect our residents, they're going to affect the right, they're going to affect the rights of our residents, their lives, their livelihoods, etc. We should just try and stay away from the political football from them and try and find a proper solution. It's very unfortunate, the circumstances, and I do hope we can have the government take a change of view.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In support of the resolution, I think this is a very sad day for a lot of us in this chamber who actually see what's happening out there to our residents. And you know, the term heat or eat is even more appropriate now than when it was considered 12 to 18 months ago. With families already on the breadline there, already with families who are working having to go to food banks across the district in order to feed their kids, and those will actually increase as time goes on now because of this massive surge in pricing of the energy bills. It's a national disgrace proud and quoted they've had the best year ever in their profits through energy. And yet, here we are with people now who won't know whether they can turn their fire on or not. I was in the precinct on Saturday, miserable, windy day, but nevertheless, doing a little survey with people around the cathedral in terms of this issue. And the amount of people, families, older people, that actually said how they are dreading the bills coming in because they just can't afford them. Can't afford them. When we can have the CX of, I believe it was Shell, get a huge, huge bonus, a bonus, at a time when we've got families up and down this country not able to actually see what's going to happen next month. Never mind wait until October, when I understand we're going to have another price increase. The cap's been lifted, October, another price increase. As well as my friend actually identifying, come April, we've got the national insurance tax to help pay for the social care and the health across the country. Again, the government negating their responsibilities in terms of the issues of respect and agenda out there. And I think it's so sad, I have to say this, Councillor Holland, that you actually use the word moan. I don't think the word moan is appropriate in any way, shape or form about a discussion and a view of what's happening to people across this district, those that you represent as well. And I don't think either it was in the interest of this chamber, when Councillor Tully was speaking, to see you waving. What were you waving? A flag?
Red flag.
I'll tell you what, you weren't waving a flag for people out there that don't know whether they're going to eat or eat. And let's get real on this. There's no way that anybody around this chamber can actually say, and Councillor Akra, I applaud you and your understanding. I do. I applaud you. But you know, the Labour Party motion on the tax, the stealth tax, the wealth tax, we are up to here with taxes. That's nothing new. That's been going on and actually been on through the party in terms of the warm homes incentive, trying to help people. But this is a real situation. And God help anybody out there who's thinking that anybody in this chamber can support a moan or find joy in waving a flag when they won't be able to waive their electric bill that they can't pay, and you could have people coming and they're going to be put into debt. First time we're telling people go into debt. Get £200 and go into debt. Imagine that. So I'm fully supportive of the resolution, and the sooner we can get something done to help those people, and I know this council will, as usual, do what they can, and I hope to goodness that we do, and we can help all those people we are afraid of for what's happening in the future. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I obviously support this motion. I wasn't intending to speak on it until the comments from the opposition leadership regarding net zero, the failures of the last Labour government. You've been in government for 12 years, 3 terms in office, and you've not been able to sort this out. You can't get away with blaming Labour or net zero for a crisis where you sat on your hands. In fact, you made it worse. You cut 75% of our gas storage capacity. You have literally exacerbated this crisis. Let's speculate this as a political decision. In France, they are looking at increases of more than 4%. You are allowing increases of 54%, your government. Now, if you wanted to tackle energy price rises, you would cap it to a similar level and not have people pay a student-style loan, which will put them further into poverty, when you actually get on with it and deal with the crisis like they want to do. So, I'd advise you to look seriously at yourselves and how you're tackling this crisis, and actually come up with a proper solution, like Labour has.
With this Madam Mayor, coming now to the vote.
Councillor Keefe, you have to come to the vote. Would you like to sum up?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll take about 10 minutes. Not a lot of time, actually, got a lot of other things on the agenda, but basically, it is been said that you're giving them £200 in their hand. You know, you're giving them a loan. It isn't a gift, it isn't a grant. It is a loan. You want it back. Whether it takes 5 years or whether it takes 10 years, you want the money back. You are
Right, we're going to move this motion to vote.
We have a point of order. Under
Councillor
the
Gordon?
standing orders, do we not need to have the closure motion seconded?
Is the closure motion seconded?
Second.
Can we just put that to the
What a
vote?
shock.
All in favour of closing the motion? And debate? Yes, I think we're absolutely fine with that. Now we shall move to all those in favour of the motion. All those against? Any abstentions? That is carried. The third motion is from Councillor Gordon. Would you like to move your motion to Councillor Gordon?
So this motion was something that I'd seen do elsewhere. And it was something that I was aware about, and I actually wrote to Yvette Cooper, my MP, about 2 years ago, about an early day motion that was tabled in the House of Commons. So a little bit of background to this motion on conversion therapy. It was in 2018 that Theresa May, the then Prime Minister, I know it seems like a long time ago, decided that she was going to try and ban conversion therapy. We then had Boris Johnson in 2019 telling us he was going to ban conversion therapy. And here we are in 2022, where it is still technically legal to allow, effectively, torture of LGBT people to try and convert themselves, and obviously that's not a phrase that should even exist, to become what religious bodies or others deem normal or heterosexual or whatever. So just going back on this, the current state of play is that the government have now decided, after throwing it off and kicking it off into the long grass time and time again, that now this is something we even need to have a debate and a consultation on. Which the idea that this is something that is up for debate in itself is absolutely ridiculous. This will be going on back end of this year, and it keeps getting pushed further and further down the line. But what is happening in those 4 years, and the many years before that, where this has been going on, is that young, old, people from all walks of life who are LGBT are allowed to be tortured. Conversion therapy is a relic of times gone by, when homosexuality was criminalised. Same-sex relationships were criminal, and it is damaging to suggest that people that somehow should have psychiatric conditions that can be fixed. That's simply not the case. It's particularly pertinent and important that February is LGBT History Month. And we look back at some of the greatest British people of all time. Alan Turing, the fantastic codebreaker who helped save countless lives by shortening the course of World War II. He, as a gay man, was chemically castrated for being himself. Yet here we are, the can still being kicked down the road, that people can still be forced, pressured into conversion therapy. Another thing that's relevant to this is that the fact that we ourselves as a country are now lagging behind other countries around the world who've already outlawed this practice. Places like France and Canada, and in many US states, it's simply not allowed. I hope today that we will all get behind this motion and send a message to the government that this is enough. And we cannot wait, we should not wait, and this barbaric practice should be banned and consigned to the history books. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Is the motion seconded?
Yeah, and second the motion.
Councillor Hayes, do you wish to formally speak now or reserve your right to speak later?
Speak now.
Okay.
I just want to say that I'm more than happy to second the motion. I echo what Councillor Gordon said really. It needs to be stopped.
Thank you, Councillor Hayes. Does any member wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Cummins.
Yeah, I fully support the motion. I read the motion yesterday and didn't realise it was still happening in this country. It's barbaric. So I support the motion, absolutely.
Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I can only say that anybody who thinks that you can resolve this by some sort of therapy is basically just living in the past. So it doesn't surprise me that most of the organisations doing this, or a lot of them, seem to be religious organisations. But what am I know about
fully support this motion, as you can imagine, being a gay. I think Tom's right. There are countries, many countries across the world, who have already banned this, and it's a bit embarrassing that we are lagging behind. I think it was out of consultation late last year. Should we ban it? Of course we should. It's not something you need to ask. And I think anyone who is asking themselves is crazy. What I worry about is the government. Every article you read, they do seem to be delaying on this. They do seem to be unsure about it. They clearly feel pressure from someone. And I think we've seen with Parliament that you can really push through legislation quite quickly with the Coronavirus Act. It was done in, almost instantly. But with something like this, which I think is an emergency, we're trying to convert people to away from sexual orientation, it's absolutely insane. And I think it's an emergency. I think we should be doing it right now. I do think they're going to try and put in some exemptions and some exceptions, and they can't be any. So I ask everyone, I've written to my MP on this, but I didn't get a response. I don't know what he's busy doing. But I would urge everyone, especially Conservatives, because I think Labour Party members are on board with it, write to your MP, push for some action, push for the right thing.
Councillor Spade.
Yeah, just very quickly to say, of course, I support this motion. I think any right thinking person would. Thank you for bringing it. As Councillor Brenda just said, I just find it embarrassing. I find it embarrassing that this should go on today, and we need to take every action to make sure it stops.
Councillor Keane?
Yeah, I mean, with the greatest respect, I've become Grandpa Simpson now. I've got to take back to 1973 and the 60s now, when the homosexual was made, okay, and then the illegality was thrown in the skip. Why did we throw this with it? Because I'm staggered that this could still take place in this country. It should have gone years ago. Get on with it, government.
Councillor Byford?
Not really got much more to say other than what's already been said by colleagues. I'm stunned that this is still on the legislative books. It's also interesting to hear that Councillor Keith just said that in 1967 homosexuality was decriminalised. That's not necessarily the case. It was decriminalised in certain situations. It was only very, very recently that it was decriminalised. I also, I'm going to be short down to say this, I also fully concur with what Councillor Holman said. Fully concur with that statement that some religious groups need to look at themselves first. Because some of what is being said by only some of the religious groups is extremely hurtful to people of the LGBT community. And, to coin Michael's expression, the gay is allowed to go.
Councillor Norwood, I think we can agree across the chamber that we're all in agreement with this motion. Would you like to... Councillor Gordon, sorry. It's been a very long day. It's the glasses. Councillor Gordon, I think we can feel love across the chamber for this motion today. In fetching the motion, you've got the right to reply to it.
I promise I won't take long on this because I know there's not much more to be said. Just thank you very much to everyone for adding to the debate, and I'm glad that this is something that we can all agree on. One of the points I did sort of dance around and didn't exactly say is that this is something that, for me as a gay man, in case we haven't already established that, I think I mentioned before, obviously is close to home, and I just can't wrap my head around how when people are coming to terms with sexuality, going through really difficult times when they're growing up, how this could be even something that they are either pushed towards or they even themselves think is alright. Really hope that this is something that is acted on, and thank you very much to everyone. And I think the point which was made about religious groups wanting exemptions, which is the purpose of that consultation and why it's been put out, this is something that there is no ifs and no buts. It needs to stop.
All those in favour of the motion? That is carried. The fourth motion is from Councillor Swift. Following government announcements last week, the motion has been amended slightly. The updated version has been circulated to members and is also available in the chamber. Councillor Swift, would you please move your motion to council?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, the bus industry is currently in a state of crisis. A bit like the NHS, it went into the COVID period in a very, very weak state. And the impact of COVID has been to expose the deficiencies and shortcomings in that industry. Now, the Arriva announcements, the short notice announcements a few weeks ago, they were simply the most recent in a series of announcements. The only thing that was really different is that it's now firmly nakedly for commercial purposes, and it's no longer cloaked in the language of staff shortages or to achieve greater reliability. But as the motion spells out, and there's likely to be more, we're facing potentially a cliff edge reduction in what's called the BSSP, the grant for the bus industry during the COVID period. We don't know how much it's going to get pulled, but if it does, we've got further problems. Now, this is all against the background of the announcement last year with great fanfare by the Prime Minister personally of the bus back better. But we do need that. We do need the buses for work, we need them for education, we need them to relieve the social isolation on the part of the elderly. What we're faced with is that going into reverse, that going backwards. Now, naturally the biggest publicity has been given to the outright loss of certain services, the threat to the 117, the leads via OSIT, but there's also the death by 1,000 cuts. The cuts in frequency, the cuts in the number of through services, and I know a number of people, including in this room, for whom essential journeys are no longer possible by bus because we can't have a through service. And it's happened to flagship services like the 126, 127, 110 and so forth, as well as more locally essential services. Now, I want to commend the actions taken by Councillor Morley, by other people in this authority and in the combined authority, in their quick response to the most recent announcements. I think that is really good. But what we've got coming, that needs to be thought as well. We do need very much to have that government support continued, otherwise we've got problems. We do need, though, a different structure. It's 40 years ago now, when the government spokesman at the time, that actually in announcing the deregulation and the privatisation of the bus industry, which is a major part of the problem, said that that would reverse the 30-year decline in the bus industry. Now, what's happened since 1986? Certainly not a reversal of that. Now, what we do need is we need progress. We'd like to say that we could go back to public ownership, because some of the best operating services in the country are actually the small number that are still municipally owned. I don't think that's possible at the moment, but what we do want as a good second best is a London-style franchising. Now, at the moment, that is being made bureaucratically very, very difficult. Greater Manchester in the lead on that is 20 million plus and still counting, and several years. And here in West Yorkshire, that we can learn from other people, we're still talking about a long, difficult and expensive road. We need that making simpler. So we've got short-term, please Arriva, hold back. At the moment it's premature, give people a chance. Government maintain the level of support, so that we don't go straight from COVID to crisis. And finally, for the longer term, let's support the efforts being made to actually bring back public control. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Swift. Is the motion seconded?
Second motion,
Councillor, would you like to speak now, or is there right to speak later?
Speak now, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm supporting the motion by Councillor Swift. I'm going to support it by explaining to you how my ward is affected by bus changes. As Councillor Swift has pointed out, it's not been, this isn't just one-off cut that's just happened. This is the latest in a series of cuts that have been happening over the past few years. We only got one private provider, so much for competition from privatisation. Now we've got the rural-urban divide when it comes to buses. It's become so wide that many urban areas are actually being treated as rural areas. And that private needs have been put on profit are certainly being put before the needs of passengers. Now in my ward, there was a private bus company besides the Lever called Travel, and it provided an excellent service between two towns, Castleford and Pontefract. Unfortunately, the levels that are given, the hurdles that are given to private companies now, were set so high that only a Lever could surpass them and travel finish its service. The result was that there was no direct service between the two towns next to each other. Buses had to round everywhere, which should take 2 or 3 area, which meant that there was a longer travelling time. And naturally, people on the streets in between say, why should I take so long to go on a bus just to travel to the nearest town centre, like being Castleford or Pontefract? That was a while ago, but a few months ago they were announced that the 410 service, which runs from Pontefract to Bishop 2 and on to Leeds, had been withdrawn. So it meant that the people in this area, on Front Street, it's called Pontefract Road, had less service. So what we're getting now is that we're getting one bus company, because there wasn't much consultation on this at all. So we're getting one bus company was deciding the bus criteria for our wards, certainly for my ward. What we are getting is like a train service. So there's an excellent service from Pontefract to Escape, to Castleford Town Centre to Leeds. There's also a train service what does that. And when you're outside of that, in my ward at Eastern Park, there was little bus services. And it's amazing that this connection to a Metropolitan train service, because when most people travel by train, they then either take a taxi or a bus, a taxi or a bus, to then go on to their home. And now it's getting more like that once they get off the bus, they have to have a taxi or walk to get on to their bus. Certainly easier than on my ward. Now there were further proposals that were going to cuts, which make even further cuts in the area we're talking about. And I thank Matthew, Cabinet Member Matthew has put these on, has managed to voice our concerns and put these on. And that's good because the service will be going from mediocre to poor to ready for it and to that. The one glimmer of hope was that as part of these changes, we would propose a bus service that would go from Airedale up to Asda in my ward, and that's only because both of the efforts of Matthew, I also got to thank Kevin because this has been going on for a long time to try and get service down in the Metro, and also from the community who worked hard for that. But that's only a different hope in what is overall darkness. Finally, we come to the maintain service, which was brought up earlier on. This service, which ran from Castleford to Nottingham, is being curtailed now for a bridge. I went to Nottingham.
Councillor Wallace, can you round this up a little bit because we've got 4 seconds left?
Okay, well, I'm just going to say it's a bad enough service that was offered on Sunday evening. It's going to be even worse now it's past the Ferry Bridge. And the addition I want to have in supporting this motion is because we're talking about climate change, we're saying we should be running buses more. How can we use buses more when there's actually fewer buses to use?
Does any member wish to speak on the motion? Councillor Stanley.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Our group will be supporting this motion. You know, so many of our residents have been affected by the cuts to the service, and we were really disappointed that we couldn't speak, you know, ask questions of the West York Mayor, Tracy Brabin, in January, because she's promised to take the bus service back into public ownership and that this will solve all our problems. I really hope it does, and I hope she can do it very quickly. Yeah, it's having quite an impact, and it will continue to have an impact from the 26th of February. You know, we've got residents who won't even be able to get to essential services like hospital appointments and the doctors. You know, and we're trying to encourage people to use public transport. We can't do that if we don't have services that they can use. So yes, you've got our full support, Matthew, to go and fight our corner, because you know, I've noticed when I've attended the West Yorks Combined Authority Transport Committee that, you know, Leeds gets what Leeds wants. You know, if they want smart buses where people can ring up and pay £2 to go wherever they like, and it'll stop within 200 yards of the house, then they get it. And you know, we're very much the poor man in this relationship. So yeah, we have our full support to go and fight for Wakefield, because we're coming out of this not as well as Leeds. Thank you.
Councillor Forster.
Madam Mayor, with respect, as the Leader of the Opposition has declared their full support for this motion, can I respectfully move that we go straight to the vote?
Is that seconded?
Seconded.
All those in favour? Can we move to the vote on this motion then, please? All those in favour of the motion, opposed? That is carried. The fifth and final motion. It's been a long one, well done, guys. It's from Councillor Gordon. Councillor Gordon, would you please move your motion to council?
When I was putting forward this motion, I was in two minds, because I didn't know we could still have a Boris Johnson PM by the time of this debate. I hope we haven't, certainly. I then was very careful with what information I put in the notes section. So I only put out facts that, you know, were publicly available at the time. And only earlier today, a photo of the Prime Minister wearing tinsel, popping champagne, having a party at Christmas, whilst the rest of us was stuck at home, isolated, away from our families. The purpose of this motion is something that we've seen other councils do already. We've seen other councils call for Boris to go. We've seen MPs call for Boris to go. We've seen people who are in government call for Boris to go. Everyone seems to be on the same page, and I hope that's the same in this council chamber. What the people of this district have experienced over the last 2 and a bit years is something out of a nightmare. And the fact that the people in charge thought it was one rule for them and a different one for us says so. What I would say to the Conservative councillors sat to my right, you will no doubt, if you've knocked on the door in the last, since Partygate as it's been called, has been running, have heard about this. Think hard, and I'd say think wrong, but you shouldn't really need to, about this. Today, this is an opportunity for Wakefield Council to say that we absolutely, resoundingly reject the way in which the rules that so many have abided by have been flagrantly broken by the Prime Minister. I don't think I need to say much more, and with that, propose a motion.
This motion seconded.
Yeah, I second the motion.
I second the motion, Councillor Hayes. Would you like to speak now, or reserve your right to speak later? Does any member wish to speak on the motion?
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Mudd.
The statement that Councillor Gordon makes lots of allegations against the Prime Minister. Some of them aren't true. Well, the legality for a start, if you bothered to do your homework, Tom, you might know that, but you don't.
Which particular part?
Which particular part? Well, I mean, saying that it's illegal Well, there's good evidence that it's not illegal, and the starting point would be Section 73 of the Public Health Control of Disease Act 1984. I'm sorry, Gillian. And also the rather attractively named, I should say, Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions All Tiers England Regulations 2020. And according to these rules, gatherings are allowed in all public buildings, or parts of them, operated by a business, a charitable, benevolent or philanthropic institution, or a public body. And Downing Street is part of the Crown Estate. Now, if this council wants to go around passing resolutions...
Shall we just get some clarification now from Gillian on the points that you've raised without going on about it? Just turn the microphone on, please.
There we go. A point of order in council procedure rules relates to a breach of the rules themselves, the council procedure rules, or a breach of the law that is relating to the motion and not to the law that you're referring to, which is the law related to coronavirus. So if you can point me to a law that the motion breaks, I can advise on that.
And I can't, just what we're saying.
You can't go.
Then I have to advise on it there, that's a proper point of order. So that is dismissed. Moving on to any members wish to speak on the motion. Councillor Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Boris Johnson says he gets it, but he doesn't. He doesn't get it. But neither does Councillor Gordon get it. He thinks this chamber is for promoting his credentials as a wannabe MP. Once again, he brings two motions taken directly off BBC Question Time, not solely of relevance to local government. Of course, his motion will be carried, without my vote. Notwithstanding that, I applaud the Prime Minister for clearing up the Brexit mess, implementing the world-beating vaccine rollout and financial support to the country to extraordinary lengths during COVID.
Shame. Yeah, I'm going to support the motion and I'm going to be pretty quick. About 58 years ago yesterday, I went down my next door neighbour's path and into his garden shed and in some concrete and linseed oil. But unbeknown to me, he painted his garden shed. And when I got back home, I walked in all that paint and walked it back into our house and then tried to deny the fact that I'd been in his garden shed. And I got caught with my hands down. And this is what we're up against. We're up against low here that wouldn't know the truth if it were written all over his face. He continually lies. He lies to the public. He lies to his own people. He lies to his own family. And that same brother who went into that garden shed with me, I'm burying him next Wednesday because he died a few weeks ago. And during the COVID period, while he was in hospital, at home, with pancreatic cancer, I saw him twice because there were no visitors. You couldn't see him. I had to wave him through a window. I've had 2 conversations with that kid who I grew up with. And the last conversation I managed to have with him face to face were about 4 hours before he died. Now that's my personal story and tragedy of this COVID crisis. And I also saw my wife working 12 and 14-hour shifts at Pinfield Hospital, bagging people, 5 and 6 a day, picking up a phone to tell the relatives that they've passed away peacefully, that I've got the belongings. I've passed on what you said to them. And all the time she's doing this, and my brother is laid in hospital, we've got elements of that lot thinking that we're one rule for one and one rule for nobody else. And that's what galls me. And to suggest that he's done a good job because he got a vaccine out and he got us out of Brexit or whatever he did and he got us out of it is total nonsense. The mask has slipped. No
rules here are there's no exceptions appear. There's a little point of hiding behind the police investigation and say, wait for the outcome. I think it should be a position where you can say, yes, I was at the party or I wasn't. It's, as it's been said, it's not one rule for him and one rule for another. People died, our residents died in hospitals alone, people couldn't visit them. Birthday parties, 5-6-year-old kids had birthday parties by themselves, why can he have a party? So I support this resolution. I don't care about the political football about it, what's right is right, and that's what I'm going to say, and I'd like to put on record that our country is run by an idiot.
I fully support this motion because at times when he was breaking the rules, I couldn't have the funeral for my son that we all, the family members, could not attend, and nobody gave their jobs. He certainly didn't, and those that are supporting him and think that it's okay need to take a look at their own morals.
Councillor Farmer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't defend the indefensible. I just can't believe it. The bloke is surrounded by educated kids. And it's not just him. There's plenty of them doing it. I'll give you a list of them. Martin Reynolds at the private sector sent out the email, bring your own rules. The Owen Patson farce, the Professor Ferguson farce, telling us what we can do, and he goes and sees his lady friend. Dominic Cummins says he drove 40 miles to Barnard Castle to test his eyesight. Why wasn't he arrested? Putting up other road users at risk. We've got Martin Ferrier. You remember the SMV? Tested positive. All right for her to drive all the way back to Scotland. Sorry, on a train back to Scotland. She didn't care. Catherine Calderwood. You remember her, the chief medical officer in Scotland, who defined her own rules and then decided to go to a second home twice. Nicola Sturgeon stood there standing by her. She hasn't resigned. It goes on and on and on. We've got Kate Josie, the Chief Executive of Sheffield Council. She's on paid leave now. Allegedly, admitted by Sheffield Council, she's being paid over £1,200 a day. She's the one that sent the rules out, and then she decided on a leaving party. We've all been taking the mick. The whole lot by us peasants, and that's what we are, we're peasants, we're abiding by the rules, and throughout this horrendous situation, they've taken the mick, and I've had enough of the whole shooting match, the whole lot of them, because I don't trust any of them. Labour, SNP, the lot. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just going to be short. Well, when Boris Johnson was Mayor of London, just after people were asking, he said, do you think Boris Johnson would be leader of the Conservative Party? And to be honest, I'm being honest, the honest answer to him was, no, I don't think the Conservative Party is that stupid. I've got to make a wrong, and I support this motion. The Conservative Party deserves a better leader than the one we've got now. They've got better leaders in the past, deserve a better leader now.
Councillor Homewood.
So, let me say, the dearest person in my life died the day after Boris had his party and had to turn a life support machine off. But I don't believe that whether Boris had his party or not was going to make any difference to whether she died, because it wasn't. But by the same token, don't tell other people to do something and do the opposite yourself. So,
Madam Mayor, we seem to have a consensus. Can we move to the vote?
Is that seconded?
Seconded. I spoke to Richard and basically asked that we wouldn't do that, so I'd have the right to reply, because I have a few things I'd like to say.
Councillor Gordon, let's give you the right to reply and we shall move it to vote. How does that sound?
I shall try not to disappoint.
Sorry, Councillor Cruz wanted to speak.
We've got a number of people that wanted to speak, but if it has been moved to the vote, we can either shut it down now without...
It doesn't really matter because I've already spoken out about this subject anyway. I think everybody knows the way I feel about it.
I'd just like to, in the right to reply, say thank you for the heartfelt contributions across this chamber on both sides. I think there's been some obviously devastating losses in the last 2 years, and I'm sorry that people have had to experience them. The main part of this reply will be asking Councillor Haynes to reconsider his ill-advised and absolute backwards thinking that he just demonstrated about 5 minutes ago. I do worry as well in terms of the fact that I'm not only saying that this isn't relevant to local government, but it absolutely is. We represent over 300,000 people across this district who all led their lives turned upside down, made misery, while the PM has made a laughing stock of the country. Of course it's relevant. The other damning part that you just said as well is you said both these motions weren't relevant, which is just completely crackers to think that putting on record that we want to abolish conversion therapy isn't relevant to people across this district too. So there does seem to be a consensus. I'm glad that was a consensus. Common sense is prevailing, so certainly ain't in Downing Street. And I do hope that when we move to vote, just now, we have a unanimous resolution that will be passed by all.
Right, I'm going to move this motion to vote now. All those in favour of the motion proposed by Councillor Gordon?
Can we propose a recorded vote?
Is that seconded? No, we're just going to move it to the vote. So because you need 5 people. This isn't forthcoming, so let's just move to the vote on this issue.
I'll second the record.
Right, okay. We have enough people showing that they want to move to a recorded vote. So we shall just bear with us while Julie gets the paperwork ready, and that's what we'll be doing.
Order, please. Just for clarification on this motion, we are voting for an illegal hosted garden party, is that correct?
What is proposed in the paperwork in front of you?
Can you just make where it's actually been stated that it's actually been confirmed it wasn't an illegal garden party?
It hasn't been proved yet. It's a police investigation.
I was under the impression it was a I was under the impression that it was under investigation.
Councillor Farmer, just 1 minute. Let's take legal advice from Julia before we move any further.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If you go into the vote, you go into the vote on the motion as printed in the agenda. If you disagree with the motion because you consider it's not been proved that what happened was illegal, then the appropriate course of action is to vote against the motion.
So, just for clarification, if I vote against the motion, it's on the grounds of it's not been confirmed, it's an illegal garden party.
I'm not asking you, Tom.
Councillor Farmer, 1 minute. Councillor Farmer, 1 minute.
Under the provision of the council procedure rule, if we go to a recorded vote, what will be recorded in the minutes is whether you voted for or against the motion. It does not record why you did that.
Now we've agreed to take this to a recorded vote, so I'm going to hand over to Julie.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Disgraceful, the watershed.
Councillors, I will now read out the names of the councillors. If you clearly indicate, please.
Councillor Homewood.
If you could indicate whether you vote for, against, or you abstain. If anybody is absent that I've not got on my list, could you please indicate? Councillor Ahmed.
Abstain.
Councillor Akbar.
For.
Councillor Eyre.
For.
Councillor Binns.
Against.
Councillor Blizzard.
For.
Councillor Byford.
For.
Councillor Carrington. Councillor Cruz.
Against.
Councillor Cummins.
For.
Councillor Dagger.
For.
Councillor Ellis.
For.
Councillor Farmer.
For.
Abstain.
Councillor Farrer. Councillor Ferguson. Thank you. Councillor Fishwick. Councillor Forster. Councillor Glover.
Against.
Councillor Graham. Councillor Gordon. Councillor Holmes is gone. Councillor Harvey.
Abstain.
Councillor Hayes? Councillor Hayes?
For.
Councillor Hemingway?
For.
Councillor Heptonstall?
For.
Councillor Hepworth? Councillor Homewood's gone. Councillor Mr Isherwood? Gone. Councillor Mrs Isherwood?
For.
Councillor Mrs Jeffrey?
For.
Councillor Johnson?
Abstain.
Councillor Keith?
For.
Councillor Kitchen? Councillor Malkin? Councillor Medford? Councillor Mitchell? Councillor Morley? Councillor Picking? Councillor Rhodes? Councillor Sanders?
Against.
Councillor Scott? Councillor Shaw? Councillor Spade? Councillor Stansby?
Abstain.
Councillor Stockdale?
Again.
Councillor Swift?
For.
Councillor Taylor's gone. Councillor Tennant? Gone. Councillor Tennant King? Councillor Tulloch?
For.
Councillor Wallace?
For.
Councillor Womersley?
For.
Councillor Austin, do you wish to vote on this? No, I'm abstaining. Councillor Jones, do you wish to vote on this? Thank you. We can do the numbers, but that was clearly carried. I'm going to put the numbers in the minutes if that's okay.
That motion is passed, Councillor Gordon. And that, colleagues, is the last item on the agenda. Thank you all for your attendance. Can I please remind members that the next meeting of council will be on the 2nd of March, which will be the Budget Council. I now declare this meeting over.